7 o'clock. I'm going to call the special September 29th meeting to order, and it's not here, but we'll start anyways, the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll look at the wrong thing.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jack on the floor.
Been there before.
Get this here. Minutes for September 8th meeting. If they're looking for an approval.
I read them, and I think Jamie's amended them already, right? So I moved them as drafted.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. 242-1822, 45 Katuitt Street, request to continue to October 13th.
So, second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. I'm going to jump just because for this will continue. 242-1787, request to continue to October 13th.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. All right, so first order of business is 242-1816, 325 Johnson Street.
All right, so the commission will recall that this is a project for a detached two-car garage with infiltration chamber, connecting the house to sewer and gas, and abandoning an existing cesspool. A little bit of an extension of the driveway as gravel to reach the proposed garage. Since our last meeting, I noticed on the natural heritage maps that the wetland behind the house up here was identified as a potential vernal pool.
And the television's not on down.
Is it?
Well, it's checking. It's telling you you have no signal.
Looking great.
Oh, there it is.
It's up there.
We're looking at a screen now,
Sorry about that, all right. Okay, so, so I had looked at the natural heritage maps, and it identified the wetland behind the house as a potential vernal pool. I brought that to the attention of the project engineer. We reviewed our local regs, and our ephemeral pool definition states that an ephemeral pool means a confined basin depression which in most years holds water for a minimum of 2 consecutive months, is free of reproducing fish populations, and has no permanently flowing outlet. So the engineer pointed out that we do have an existing 24-inch RCP drain pipe that connects the pond to the stream that runs down on the side of the driveway. It's a permanently outflow. It's a permanent outflow, basically. So I think we answered that question, and I just want to make sure the commission was comfortable with that determination that we, came up with.
Well, if it's an intermittent stream downstream, isn't it not flowing some of the time, so it's not permanently flowing?
Well, that's a good question, because the USGS shows this stream as a thick, dark blue line, which is assumed to be perennial.
And it was adjudicated or?
Exactly. And so with this new notice of intent, DEP pointed that out and said you need to, reevaluate, do the stream stats. And Jack did do that. So we're back at an intermittent status based on watershed size. And Jack there's
That's
a,
right, based on the watershed size. It didn't meet the qualifications as a perennial stream under the stream stats.
Right, so my contention would be it's not permanently flowing.
Well, there's a head wall there with a 24-inch pipe. There's also an inlet to this pond. And when it doesn't call it in your definition, but when I looked up under the state code, if there's a inlet or outlet, it's deemed, and the homeowner's not here tonight, but they've been there over 20 years. They say there's blue heron that comes out, always grabbing fish out of there. So we didn't go in trying to find out if there was fish because, I mean, with a 24-inch pipe, that's a sizable pipe. It's not
Yeah.
like a small pipe for an overflow.
All right, so there is an inlet pipe going in though, so,
There's one coming in and one going out.
all right. Is it an old detention pond?
I don't know the history of it.
Just because there's a drainage easement around it, that was,
Yep, I don't know the history of it.
It's an old pond, it's been there for, well, before me, and I used to play hockey on it.
There you go.
And there are fish in there, because we used to fish it.
Okay.
okay, well then that, that's,
That-
Not in the farmer's pool.
It's not an ephemeral pool, it's not an ephemeral pool.
Right,
It's pretty much a man-made pond,
okay.
but it's been there since probably they developed Sutton Hill Road, which was in the 60s.
So we're approved through the planning board for this project. We're approved through the zoning board, so this is the last approval we need.
Right, thank you.
so the commission had no further questions at the last hearing. It was just a matter of, our meetings were more than 2 weeks apart, so, and then we had to cancel our 22nd.
We'll check
So-
anyways.
So I can recommend that you can close issue, and I have draft decision tonight for you.
So moved.
You don't have, no, anybody have any questions?
I do. I'm still, I'm not comfortable with the status here. We're calling it a pond? Is that what we're describing it as?
I would call it a pond, yes.
We're calling it a pond, based on an inlet and an outlet?
I think the presence of.
Presence of fish.
Presence of fish would be the big.
The evidence of the presence of fish has been submitted how?
Like testimony.
Normally,
The fish-
I
No, I
asked.
get it.
Heron feeding on something. I don't know.
Heron feed on frogs too. Heron feed on everything. I got great blue heron all over my place.
I think the
My-
fact that we have a controlled structure on either an inlet and an outlet from it, and an outlet structure from it, the area is not habitat. It certainly is a resource area, no doubt about it. It's a, well, by definition, a perennial stream, and the impoundment itself probably has BVW associated with it, but I don't think it's an ephemeral pool. Doesn't meet the definition.
All I'm saying is, what I'm saying is, don't lower the bar for analyzing the pond. If it's a pond, and if it has fish, and if it's not an ephemeral pool, I don't object. I want to make sure that we don't lower the bar on the analysis of the pond. That happened in this commission once before on Great Pond Road, and it caused irreparable damage for a lot of years. The last time we had to analyze a pond, and it wasn't a big deal, the wetland scientist working for the applicant went out onto the pond and put fish traps out and trapped fish, and made observations and filed a report that we could have in the permanent file. Did that happen here?
No.
Not with, in this instance.
So that's a problem,
Okay.
because that's going to establish a standard, a baseline for future projects, and we ought not to dumb it down.
Okay.
The presence of fish is just one other indicator.
One
It-
criteria.
I think the fact that we have control outlet structure all by itself regulates the flow out of it, and the fact that the stream stat supported as a perennial stream
That's
supports it.
that's how I looked at it.
That's,
Do you
that was
say-
my contention.
I thought I heard it said by stream stats, it's perennial.
No, by stream stats, it was not perennial.
Not perennial.
Not
Okay,
perennial.
I understand correct, so that means if
But-
it were as a stream, it couldn't be an ephemeral pool. The fact that it's intermittent theoretically might be. But the outlet control structure, I
Well, no,
think,
the DEP's since taken that out, there's no mention, natural heritage endangered species, you can have an outlet. The portion below the permanent outlet could still be a vernal pool.
beyond it, below it, I should say, yeah.
I don't think I've ever
Okay.
seen it dry.
That would be a thing. If it's never dried up, that's,
But that's irrelevant, if you just allow me. That affords it the standard setback. What we're talking about is a 75-foot setback, a difference of 25 feet. In order to make that distinction, all I'm saying is there needs to be a professional analysis that looks at all the statistics and all the features and all the aspects of what makes it what it is or what makes it what it's not. We shouldn't just be taking evidence, haphazard evidence, and using it as an analysis. The analysis should be done professionally so that we have something in the file that shows that we did our diligence on it, and we don't have a ghost appear in a year saying, you guys screwed up on that pond.
You know, we did deny a project recently.
I'm just saying, you know, I'm not, no disrespect to you, Jack, you know, we.
I know. I take
This
it.
has to be, there has to be, just like when somebody wants a variance and we ask them to do their alternatives analysis, there has to be a supporting document for a finding. I'm just looking for that. That's all I'm looking for.
Yep. If the commission feels that way, I can have,
They may not. I may be alone here. I've been alone
Yeah.
before. So we'll see where it goes, but that's what I'm asking for. There's a lot of people here, so the vote, you understand?
I do.
All right.
I do. And
That's
it-
all I
it-
have to say. I'm good.
And I've actually been, in opposition to what you had said, but, you're absolutely correct that there's that last piece that, dots the i's and crosses the t's and just isn't here. I mean, I think my confidence level is it's gonna come back negative, but they gotta do the work.
And I apologize if it delays the project. That's not my intent. I think we just have to set, because as we like to say, we don't like to set precedent against ourselves. This will come back to bite us without the document. I think, and I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, any more discussion?
I'm a big precedent guy. I think if you go ahead and as Al said, you treat it one way today, then every file going forward, people are gonna say, well, you did it that way that day. Why are you asking me for this additional documentation when you didn't require that back on September 29th? So I think doing it the right way, and without any intent to delay is the right way to do it.
Just looking at one other piece of criteria, is there any documentation that shows that the outlet is continuously flowing?
I don't know how to really prove that. I don't have that information.
Catch-22, because if the outlet's continuously flowing, then it's not an intermittent stream. If it flows year-round.
It's something else. We're talking about it being a ephemeral pool, and that was one of the criteria. So if it has a permanently flowing outlet, it wouldn't be a ephemeral pool.
But then it would be a river downstream, still permanently flowing.
But the setback wouldn't change. Most likely it wouldn't change. It would start from the toe of the bank?
Top of the bank. Yeah, top of the bank.
Top of the bank. So it's gonna start from there, or the resource area, whichever is greater.
It's the 75-foot no.
It's the 75 that
It's
would.
the no disturb that becomes the impact. Yeah.
And the only thing in the 75, and just barely in the 75, is I put two little concrete pads out in the back, I think for a generator pad and something else. They're like 70 feet away. They could be moved. But I was trying to think, I understand the commissions, they've been through a lot. At first, we didn't think we had to go to zoning board, then the decision was made they had to go to zoning board. So I thought we had the permanent flowing outlet here, but if we have to just demonstrate this fish in the pond, we can do that. Or I can move the pads outside the 75-foot buffer.
I think what I'm asking for is that whatever you call it, there should be documentation and analysis to back it up, to say, this is what it is because of the following data. The data, the science has to support the project.
Okay.
The fact that there may be fish or may not, or maybe blue herons or may not, or it may run all the time or sometime, those are all factors that would be looked at in its totality by a competent scientist.
Okay.
That's what I'm asking for.
Yeah, Jack, I think
Fine.
as a matter of expedience, of moving things out so that they comply with the 75 no disturbance almost creates an assertion on your part that you're conceding that it is a vernal pool, and that could, further impact what they want to do in the yard in the future. So that's not the right way to do it.
I just thought it was a way to say, oh, there's a finding that there's a potential vernal pool. We moved everything outside of 75 feet. We didn't make a determination
Exactly.
on it being a vernal pool, but if it was, Joe, in the future, we'd be outside the 75 feet. It would be more a finding without a definitive statement.
Yeah, I think just modifying a project to avoid a bureaucratic
Isn't
issue
the answer-
is very reasonable
So
by
if
an
he wants to-
applicant.
but
You
I
think it's reasonable?
I understand what he's saying.
Yeah, if he wants to move it because he doesn't want to have to deal with this issue and he wants to get.
If he wants to make it
his-
75
his-
feet
he wants to close
and
to
not
it.
waste time addressing or defining what the resource area is.
I'm just used to step one in any process is what is the resource area? And if we don't know it's a vernal pool, we don't have a line determined yet. We need to know what that resource area is. We really do.
So, the next question that I was going to ask is, if it is a vernal pool, does the 50 no disturb and 75 no build continue down the side of the driveway because it's connected to that stream and fringe BBW?
So again, this is where it becomes all more important to definitively say what it is. What is that
Right,
area?
right.
What is it,
Right.
and why are we saying what it is? You've done this, you know what's involved.
But I just want to, that's a question that is in my mind that, because it will impact the garage greatly if it continues down and with the stream and the fringe BBW.
So all that's gonna do is
Associated
make this even worse for us to have to deal with if we don't know what it is.
Yeah, okay.
It's just gonna get worse, not better. We're not gonna be able to help the applicant.
Like I said, I know this, because I used to play hockey with the Armitages over there. But I think the discharge pipe is put at a certain elevation, so if the pond, because I think it's a pond, if the pond fills up, then it discharges. But there's water flowing in, but not all the time out. So, but unless there's no fish in there anymore, but there used to be fish, because I caught fish in there. So,
I can't tell you I've never seen it dry, but I can tell you almost every time I've seen it, it's been wet and full.
yeah, yeah. But I agree with Al, if we want to, we do our diligence, so everybody's happy. All you gotta do is look for fish, because I know they're in there.
We'll find fish.
Or move the pads out.
No, we, as Amy points out, that doesn't solve it. That doesn't cure the problem. The problem doesn't go away. It has to be identified.
All right.
It has to be identified. We're at the 20-minute mark, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I would recommend that we move, give the applicant direction
Yep,
and continue this.
I'm fine, we'll go find fish.
Go fish.
We're going fishing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you very much.
To the October 13th meeting? Okay.
All right. Next one is 242-1820, 227 Berry Street.
Evening, folks. I'm Bob Prokop, the wetland consultant, and I have with me John Brunette from 227 Berry Street. So basically, we're looking to replace a porch that was constructed in and around 1965. 63, actually. Sorry. That's all right. No, I didn't, okay, but still. Yep. The new porch, after discussion, will be the same size, although there'll be a little bit more overhang than there is right now. So there will be no further intrusion into the 25-foot no-build zone. So it's basically just rebuilding an old porch. And, you know, we have erosion control, we have a spoil pile location shown. The site is within the no-build zone, and the part of it is in the no-disturb zone. But again, the house was built before there were any wetland regulations. So, in effect, we're just replacing a porch that is in dire need, and I think there's pictures of it in the application. So, and the whole backyard area is just simply lawn. Which is in that 25-foot no-disturb zone, a no-build zone, no disturb zone, and no-build zone. So,
25 is no disturb. All right, Joe, any questions?
The, With regards to the porch structure, that's exactly the direction we gave at the last meeting. Still remains the question that came out almost tangentially to the application, and that's the presence of the hot tub, but, you know, I'll defer to everybody else with that discussion. But we asked them to put the footings no closer, and they've done that, and the overhang is something we typically allow.
Yeah, just to clarify, there's a screen porch proposed where there is not one now?
There's currently a screen porch.
There is,
On the
okay.
same, yep.
Okay.
It's been there since '63, I guess.
Yep.
Seems like it. It's pretty,
Okay.
pretty old. and
Okay.
It needs to come down.
I have no more questions.
So what is the intention with the hot tub?
So we've been made aware of the concern of the board with the hot tub. It's been disconnected for about 6 months with no electricity. There's never been a water connection to it. It's laying flat on the ground. It's not dug into the ground or anything. If it's the board's has enough concern, we can move it or remove it. Our main goal is to get the porch built as designed here.
Can you move the tub so that it's in a compliant location to make it usable again? Because right now, it's not permitted and it's not compliant.
The only place it could be moved, it could be moved outside the 25-foot no disturb zone, but that area already exists as lawn, just plain lawn. So there is some room to move it around a bit. Otherwise, the only alternative is to take it out, but would like to keep it if possible.
So, if you can see this plan, so the 50, so it would be probably in the 50-foot no build.
Right now, it's in the no
In the
disturb.
25. No, I get it, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that
I'm not.
the real alternative is in the 50, out of the 25, but still in the 50, just so you know that.
So it's not permitted and it's not compliant. So what do we want? What do we do? Because we can't fail to address it and just make believe it's
Oh,
good.
no, I agree.
How big is the hot tub?
Yeah, size of this table, give or take. It's about 6 by 6, maybe,
6 by 6?
roughly. I didn't measure it. So,
It's just on the ground, it's freestanding.
Just sits on the ground in an area that exists as lawn, or did exist as lawn until the hot tub was there. And that's what the whole backyard area is. It's just lawn. As John mentioned, it's been there since '63.
So I would say at the minimum, you want to get it out of the 25
Yeah,
and not activate it without coming back for applying for a permit. That would be
Yep.
my recommendation, okay?
Sorry.
All right.
Sorry about this.
That's okay.
Wait a minute.
Happens to all of us.
Be quiet, you.
Amy, this requires a waiver, correct?
I think we submitted a original waiver for the
Technically,
3 feet.
well, I
Original.
mean,
The building, the structure's in the 25,
right. The footings are
no
at,
old or whatever.
the new footings will be where the existing footings are with a new overhang, so according to the architect, there's 1.2 inches further into the no disturb zone
Of overhang, right? Not,
of overhang. It's the overhang, it's of
The
overhang. not-
footings are all-
The footings are
Yeah.
where,
Of overhang.
The reason why I'm asking is with, I try, and I know the commission does, try to be consistent in what we do. Okay, so the structure I know is in kind, that's fine. But at least there should have been an alternatives analysis, given why the deck has to be here, because it is a 25. The hot tub is in a 25, not permitted.
right.
That should have been removed before they even filed an application, because it's an open violation. And we're not even supposed to look at an application with an open violation. So, to be consistent, and I'm not trying to single you guys out, I want you to be aware of that. We treat everybody the same. So if somebody else comes in with a plan with an illegal, or a shed, or whatever, another hot tub, or whatever, in the 25, the first thing one of these commissioners will say, that's gotta get out of there. Okay? You know, and on Berry Street, we did similar lot. We made them put a wall up at the 25. And they actually built a pretty nice wall. No, we required it was a farmer's wall. But I mean, we just can't, I can't in good conscience, just, okay, I know it's an in-kind replacement, that's fine. But with an open violation, I have in a no alternatives analysis, I have a problem approving this project.
Does that include the porch as well, or just the hot tub?
Well, even though it's in kind, an alternative analysis say, well, it's been there since blah, blah, blah. There's
63.
no place else to put the dock, no place else to put the porch. You know, give us something to hang our hat on. Because the next person that comes in is gonna wanna put something in the 25, and we're gonna say, well, we're not gonna even hear this because there's no alternative analysis. And it's not fair.
No, but I mean, for the porch itself, does that require an alternative analysis?
Yes, it does. I think it does.
To replace an in-kind porch that's been there for 50 years?
Well, it's in the 25.
Yeah, but-
I have this thing about things in the 25.
But there was
I
no
could-
regulations then, when it was built.
Well, now we're tearing it down.
No, the state didn't even have wetland
But
regulations.
you're taking
back
it
then.
down.
What?
You're removing this deck, correct?
And replacing it.
All right.
With a new
But once you
porch.
remove the deck, you really come back down to the actual jurisdiction.
25.
You know, it's just like if you tore the house down, you know, okay, right, I'm gonna build the same, I'm gonna build a different house. But it's still in the 25, or in the 50 no build. So I think an alternative analysis that we can hang our hand on, even though it may sound frivolous, I think it should be required all the time.
Well, what's the point of that? I mean, if the house is already there, the porch is already there, they want to fix it or replace it, and you need an alternative analysis to say,
Yeah, this is a little different, I think, Lou, in that respect, in that it's something that's already there, and it's, you know, and I know they are modifying it a bit by this 9-inch thing, and I can see maybe that's where you're getting hung up on it a little bit, but I do think it is pretty much almost an
But-
in-kind replacement, and generally, I don't know if we'd get an alternatives analysis.
They do provide some description.
Yep, and they have,
I think,
Well, that's what I'm asking.
I think to justify the waiver, we do require an alternatives analysis, and I think in this case, where, you know, the porch was grandfathered in since 1963, why, it would be a pretty simple statement of, here's our preferred alternative, and here are, you know, some other ones. It's really about a couple of paragraphs. But I think it's required by the regs to have an alternative.
I think we've heard it in testimony.
It's simple.
I think we've heard it in testimony.
Actually,
One was-
And the applicant.
they may have it.
On the narrative,
They may have
correct.
addressed it in there.
Okay, well, then that's fine.
It may be, I think it may be a little, if it's possible. I didn't see that either, but I
I
think,
didn't either.
yeah.
It says that there were no alternatives because it was an existing, lawfully
Yeah,
existing porch prior to.
Well,
Prior to the
That would suffice it.
That
yeah,
suffices.
that box, it says, describe the alternatives that were analyzed, it says, none, since the original porch lies within the buffer zone that predates the state and local wetland ordinance. So, they do have, information for that box.
It would actually have even qualified as a small project,
Except for the size.
but for the,
But for the size.
but for the size, yeah.
Yeah, the size wouldn't have allowed that.
And the hot tub.
I think we're getting tripped up on it.
No, I'm just trying to, for my own peace of mind, it could be, it's right, it could be wrong, it's fine, I'm not always right. Most of the time I am.
No, you're
but-
right, they got the document, they got it.
Okay,
They got it.
that's good. But I have an issue with the hot tub. So,
Yeah, I think we have I think we're in agreement on the hot tub.
we are.
I'm seeing heads nodding, I think we're all set there.
okay.
Can I just ask one question
Sure.
before they come back? The erosion control line? How'd you come up with that location? Is that the edge of lawn, or is that, just because the whole erosion control line's in the 25-foot?
Well, it's basically core logs that would completely enclose the.
I'm just saying that, you know, if there's no reason to go that far out with the work.
Well, we can bring that in, but I figured
Just-
the more the merrier, so to speak. So,
But if that's the edge of the maintained lawn, then I
Yeah.
understand.
But it's all in lawn.
Okay.
It's all staying in
That's
lawn.
all, that was my only
Yeah,
question, as
okay,
to,
yeah.
you weren't going any further back.
No, not at all. And stuff. And even the spoil pile, which is the area shown in, well, yellow, in case
At
the,
the end of the driveway.
yeah, that's in case they need, temporarily deposit debris from the demolition. But most likely it'll go right into a dumpster once it's taken down. So,
So Amy, let me ask the question. It sounds like, I'm getting the impression that we're all on the same page here. I realize the next meeting is 3 weeks away. 2 weeks?
2 now,
It's 2.
Yeah.
So we can continue this, and you can have a draft decision made for the next one?
Yeah.
And maybe you can just revise the plan to show the hot tub moved, and then we'll close an issue at the next, likely close an issue at the next meeting?
well, could we simply just say the hot tub will be removed?
The
as one of
decision's not gonna be
conditions?
ready for 2 weeks anyway. It's a push.
So,
In other words, we could close it tonight, you're still not getting your decision until 2 weeks from tonight.
okay, so, but in 2 weeks, if we came back
Come back
with the,
with the revisions that need to be shown.
which would be the hot tub,
Yep.
okay?
And anything else any other commission wants shown on the drawing? I'd say ask it now.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at the previously submitted plan. So I think the surveyor turned off some layers here. We need septic system back on, driveway, stockpile. It kind of got turned off on the, so just shifting all that information back onto this, the new plan.
Well, I think, well, the septic system's on the right side of the screen there.
Right, but that's an old plan, so this is the
So can you come back in 2 weeks with the whole thing all fixed, so we
this
can
is-
close it clean, make a clean close?
original.
You're not gonna get a decision tonight anyway.
All right,
It's just not happening, we don't have one.
what do you think?
Do we know what we need, Bob?
Well, that's what we're trying to tell you.
Well,
So,
well, the-
on the right side, original submission
Yep.
has septic, driveway,
Yes.
stockpile,
yes,
and plantings.
yes.
Revised plan on the left, all those things are off now,
Oh.
and we just have an updated porch and deck outline.
Is that the one submitted by the architect?
Yeah, or it's either architect or the surveyor, I don't know.
Surveyor, I believe.
Oh, okay.
But,
Well, basically,
so-
it's a simple case of going to the original submission.
All right, so we put that stuff back on it.
Yeah, and get rid of the tub.
Hot tub,
And
so-
give us a nice clean drawing that can be the record drawing,
Right, okay,
all right? So that when we go to the file in the future,
yes.
there's no, there doesn't have to be an asterisk or an explanation,
Yes,
okay?
Yes, that's,
All right,
Okay.
I'll move that we continue for 2 weeks.
okay.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, and that's unanimous.
Thanks, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Next one, 292 Candlestick Road.
So the commission will recall that this is, this project involves this above-ground swimming pool, a deck extension, and some mitigation plantings. Since the last meeting, the plan was revised to shrink the pool down to, let's see, 12-foot diameter above ground, resulting in 42 square feet of the pool being inside the 50-foot no-build and 45.4 feet from the wetland. The deck has been reconfigured to stay out of the 50, and planting mitigations were increased. And, I think that summarizes it. And the shed was removed, eliminated from the project. And that's,
For the record, Greg Hockman from Williams and Sparagus, representing Ross Billings for the notice of intent filed for 292 Candlestick Road. This is our second hearing for this project. At the first hearing, we presented a much different project, as Amy just explained. It was a much larger pool that was still as close to the house as we could make it, and as far away from the wetlands as we could propose it, based on town building requirements for swimming pools. We also had a deck that extended off the proposed pool and attached to the existing wood deck that was also in the no-build zone, as well as a shed that was just off the garage, a portion of which was in the no-build zone. And I think what we heard at the last meeting was that we really needed to go back and take a close look to see if there was anything else that we could possibly do to get this out of the no-build zone, or at least propose something that was as small as possible and as far away as possible and comply with the setbacks as much as possible. We did that. We went back, and it's simply impossible to propose a pool and have the pool outside of the no-build zone. So what Mr. Billings has done is he's talked to the pool company, and he's proposing a 12-foot diameter above-ground pool, and the deck was modified to get the entire deck out of the no-build zone. So we're 5 feet further from the wetland, so now we're 45 feet from the BVW, and we've got a 6.7 to 1 ratio of mitigation for the 42 square feet of encroachment into the no-build zone. The portion of work that's in the no-build zone is all over existing lawn, landscaped areas, and a stone path. But it is a structure in the no-build zone, and we know waivers are very hard to come by with this commission. But we do think a 6.7 to 1 ratio really would be a benefit to the resource area. It would provide much more of a vegetated buffer between the active portions of the property and the resource area. By enlarging the enhancement area, we were also able to include more berry-producing shrubs, which will be valuable for the wildlife that utilize the adjacent resource areas. And I believe one of the commission members at the last meeting didn't feel too comfortable about proposing restoration in an area that technically is in the no-disturb zone. We did go back and look at the prior as-built plan and the wetland line that was in place at that time, and the wetlands have moved up slope. So where we are proposing restoration or enhancement within the 25-foot no-disturb, it was not within the 25-foot no-disturb zone at the time that an as-built was issued for this lot. And I have a plan here that I can show you where that line was. I can flip to it just so you can see. Because we agree that it doesn't make sense to be able to benefit for something that technically shouldn't be there already. Here it is here. So the blue line is where the wetland was. The green line is where it is today. So this portion of work that's proposed within the 25-foot no-disturb zone today was not within the 25-foot no-disturb zone then. So it truly is mitigation, and I think the lot will get more vegetated buffer in an area that it technically didn't need one. But that's really all we can propose here. The only other option is to not put a pool in. We can't get any smaller. 12 feet is pretty small. But impact-wise, it's a cartridge filtration system, so there's no need for backwash. And I just have a hard time seeing how there would be any impact to the resource area as a result of this waiver request.
Can I just remind the commission that there is the wood deck up there that straddles the 25 and the 50, that he inherited it when he bought it, but it's, a wood deck in the 25 and the 50 that.
Yeah, it looks like it started out as a tree fort for the kids, and then I think it's painted white, right, Ross? And it became a little bit more than a tree fort. Now it's just an area that Ross's kids like to go and hang out. But we did, Thor Akeley from my office, who did the resource area delineation, went back to see if there was any way to tighten these flags up. And the boundary that you see here is what it is. We can't make it any further away. And we did notice a debris pile from the prior owners, and we're also proposing to remove that and restore that area. But that's not included in our 6.7 to 1 mitigation ratio.
Thank you. Joe?
Greg, flip back to that earlier wetland line, if you could, please. So when first permitted, the house in the yard was allowed to get as close as it did, and that lawn area was previously permitted, if not for the encroachment or the further increase of the boundary moving up gradient.
Correct.
So, well, your argument, or your position is that since it was previously permitted and it's previously disturbed and not in violation, that by returning it to resource, to buffer zone enhancement is in fact mitigation. That's your premise exactly, right?
Correct.
Okay. So you're asking us to give up the square footage of encroachment of the pool within the no disturb, which is actually further away from the wetland than this replication area that you're now proposing. So not only are you returning previously disturbed lawn in a ratio of 6:1 or
6.7.
6.7:1, you're also putting it in a location where it's closer to the wetland, therefore that much more beneficial.
In our opinion, yes.
Yeah, that's exactly what you're asking, right? And it begs the question of, so, that extra wood deck right out next to it, I mean, we didn't focus on it too much at the last meeting, but, you know, the intention is to keep it there?
We'd like to keep it there if we can.
Okay, so,
It is, I don't know if it matters, sorry, but it's sitting on rocks that like melt, like bound to the rock, so it's not actually in the ground. And it's just a place that my kids
just a
like
floating,
to,
a floating platform.
yeah, it's just a place that my kids like to read and like look at the wetlands. So if we could keep it, I mean, it'd be beneficial. To me, to go in and, I mean, I couldn't fully take out things without a machine because it's in the rock.
No walls, no roof,
Nope,
No, it's
just a platform.
it's an observation deck,
Not a
It's got a
basically.
small railing,
Yeah.
right?
In my opinion, it's not.
There's like a safety railing, but it's not a wall, it's just like a,
Okay. I'm pretty clear on what you're asking. I'm all set.
Yeah, I think you've done all you can. I would agree with you, Greg, that you've shrunk the pool as much as you can, positioned it as close as you can. You got the supply box outside the 50-foot at a pretty good spot. My only misgiving on this project is that we're expanding, we're putting more structure in the no-build zone. We typically honor, grandfathered decks like you have that apparently, when it was built, it was either okay to build it there or the wetland line changed and put it into the 50. We get all that and there's nothing you can do about that, but to put more structures in is something that we typically don't do. Yeah, I think you've done all you can, but I'm not sure it's gonna be enough. That's all I have.
Mr. Chairman, I asked so many questions, I didn't make comment. You've got just a drafting error on the latest plan. You've got the proposed wooden deck witness line pointing out to no man's land. Don't want anybody to believe that they're allowed to build a deck out there, so strike that note.
Whereabouts are you,
Right,
that is
you
where
see
the
right
deck is.
proposed wooden steps, and then right below it, proposed wooden deck, and a line pointing out to where previously was shown.
Oh, no, that's actually, there is a deck proposed there, but it's outside the no-build zone. It's just a narrow,
Well,
there you go.
the
Maybe
the
just-
line is narrow, I got it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's a
originally it went
rectangular
over.
line as opposed to the bigger one, got it? I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry.
So, you never bring us anything that's easy. I don't understand how you do it, but you always bring in the Hail Marys.
Well, I do think sometimes a waiver makes sense, especially if you can get something back like this for a 42 square foot encroachment.
So I'm going to focus on the positives here because I think that's what I want to do. And the difference between the wetland line then and the wetland line now is impressive. Not many scientists point out the migration of a wetland line, and that's an interesting piece of information. I think it's an important piece of information. I also like the 6.7 to 1 ratio of buffer zone enhancement. I'm struggling with the 45.4 feet. I won't lie to you. That's like a big sign right in front of my face. I see a lot of positives here, and I want to help, and at the same time, I'm looking at that 45 feet. I'd have to say I don't know yet where I'm at. But for that, I love the project, and I like the way you did your work. Let me see, let's go down the line here, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And I'm agreeing with Greg, you definitely did the extra mile on this project. But I'm looking at the first recommendation, first thing, and it says 50-foot NBZ. Now, that's called no-build zone. And lately, I don't know why it is, but lately, people have been pushing the button about 50-foot, trying to put stuff in, trying to put stuff in the 25, and back to the same thing. It's a pool, it's a structure. Not everybody has to have a pool, which is not, it sounds kind of hard, but I'm not trying to be heartless. But I have an issue with, if it says no build, if it says no disturb, there shouldn't be any wiggle room. That's what we base this commission on, is the bylaw. And if we're gonna skirt the bylaw every time somebody comes for an application, we might as well just stay home and watch the Red Sox.
Well, unless there was a benefit to the resource area by granting the waiver, and I think there is that here.
Well, even that area, that's got to be in the, right now, where you want to do the application, it's got to be in the 25. So it should be left alone. 25 is no disturb. I know you're going to improve it, and you're going to create you're going to do some mitigation out there.
But it wasn't the 25 when the lot was permitted. That was our point. The wetland moved. It's in the 25 now, but it's a lawful maintained area.
I know, but we have probably 1,000 sites in this town that the wetland has changed due to beaver, or whatever the reason, the wetlands changed. I would say there was a wetland in this town 25 years ago that's the same. So that doesn't hang my head on it. I'm just, the 50-foot no-build zone is, 25 is really an issue with me, but 50, I mean, it doesn't sit well with me. But I gotta say, you went the extra mile. The 10-foot away from the house sticks in my craw too, because there was a project here not too long ago where the building department was considering being 6 feet off the house. If they started out at 3, then they went to 6. But there was another issue that was not being addressed, and that's what blew the project out of the water. So, and this is an above ground. The one that they were trying to get 6 foot off the foundation was an in-ground. So I think that was is that a building inspector or a zoning issue?
I think it's the building inspector.
But you could apply for a variance by the zoning department, correct?
Is it the state building code?
Yeah, you'd have to go to the State Building Commission.
Yeah, which they wouldn't give it to us. It'd be nice if they would.
Yeah, it's not a, if it was a zoning, if there's an issue of zoning non-compliance, they could get a denial from
So that's a
the building
state,
inspector and go to the ZBA. With the state building code issue, they'd have to go to with the building code issue, they'd have to go to the code enforcement officer.
so that's a
through the
state law, 10 foot
Yeah.
off a house?
Yes. Well, it's, I think it's IPC is 10 feet to an
I
impound.
mean, we've got a handful of waivers over the years, and believe me, we know they're hard to come by. And if I didn't think this was going to somehow benefit the resource area, we wouldn't ask for it. We would have told the client we couldn't help them. 42 square feet, to me, it's not a lot, and although Mr. Billings doesn't want to, if we were willing to remove that treehouse structure that's in the woods, it would almost be a wash. He'd be willing to do that if that meant he could get his pool.
To be truthful, what he said was built on rock, it doesn't bother me, because it doesn't affect the wetland being on rock. But let's see what the rest of the guys say. Sean?
So, nobody likes to, I mean, everybody wants to let you do what you want to do. I mean, at least, I say, I'll speak for myself, I do, but I do feel very constrained because of the bylaw and the 25 and the 50 buffer zones. I think it is important that we are consistent, as we've seen here today. We've had a number of applicants already come in front of us with issues of 25 and 50 when their dwellings were built before the bylaw came into effect, and now they're trying to modify things. And as you've seen just a little while ago, we took an uncomfortable position and didn't allow it to go forward, and they had to modify their project to just do it in kind, in essence, replacement. And it's still an open project, so I don't want to get into it too much. But it's just an example of why being consistent is important. And I apologize if any effect that has on you or any other applicant that comes in front of us. But I don't feel comfortable waiving issuing a waiver here, so.
So, I look at our wetlands protection regulations. The standards are no practical condition or alternatives. I guess the only alternative is no build, which, depending on who you ask, is not practicable, Projects and its natural consequential effects will not have any adverse effects upon the interests of the bylaw. You provided information, it's existing disturbed area. Project will improve the natural capacity of a resource area, which you're stating that the buffer zone enhancement will. It's as good of a case for a waiver as any, but it gets back to the historical issue, and if, it's not something that's been done before, I don't know that we want to set the precedent, but.
Well, we have gotten waivers in town before. It's not like the commission's never granted a waiver before. I've gotten at least 3 since 1998. And it's only been where it does make sense. And to me, an above-ground pool and an existing maintained lawn and landscaped area, 42 square foot encroachment, and you're getting back a pretty substantial strip between the existing maintained lawn area and the resource area. To me, that makes sense. A project like that should get a waiver, in my opinion, but I'm not sitting where you are.
Yeah, I think what you're trying to say, Greg, is that, we're here because we don't totally strictly follow the letter of the law. We do interpretation here at this table, and I think that the argument you're making is that converting manicured lawn to a restoration area at a 6.7 to 1 ratio of the disturbance is a greater benefit than it overcomes the disturbance put in by the structure, okay? And so you're asking us to do an interpretation of the spirit of the law, which is preserve and improve our wetlands. And I think you make a good case, but it looks like our board is clearly split on which way we're going to go.
Only one way to find out.
I think we stopped a little bit short in the presumption that the argument's focusing on the pool, but, if we buy into the waiver and we buy into the restoration area, we've yet to even debate, so what sort of physical boundary do you provide in that restoration area? We talk about a fence, we talk about a fall, it's been silent in this whole debate so far, because I guess we're just simply not there yet. But it basically, the project becomes more than what's shown right here, because I think we're ultimately going to require at the very least a fence, if not a wall. And, that may be a game changer for the applicant as well. I mean, again, if we're getting an enhancement area and it's within the 25, we're going to expect a barrier.
Fence in between the
Existing lawn and the restoration area.
yeah, I'll fence it. I don't have a problem. It's a safety thing for my kids anyway. I don't like them to have all the ticks and
So
everything.
you're starting to get to the point of decision of, what do we consider the pool?
I'm gonna make the motion, and we'll see where it goes, because we're all gonna fall asleep here shortly. I'm gonna move to grant the waiver as requested.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. So what, who, So it's 4-2?
How did you vote?
I voted aye.
4-2.
So it passes 4-2.
On the waiver.
So you've got your waiver on a 4-2 vote.
Thank you.
And it's probably gonna cause us to have a fist fight outside after the meeting.
Never does.
So thanks a lot, Greg.
Well, I do think the waiver makes sense in this case. I know I've said that before, and I wouldn't ask for it if I didn't.
So, I think now the motion should be to continue this to the next meeting. And,
I think
we'll-
it is
we'll-
with the guidance of showing what sort of, permanent boundary.
you know what's gonna be required,
I do.
all right? Don't,
Not a fence.
you know what's gonna be required.
Yep.
A permanent delineating line.
With markers.
Bear in mind there were 2 no votes.
Yep, I
So,
understand.
all right, and we'll have hopefully a decision ready to go.
So we'd like to request a continuance until the next hearing, please.
Say it again?
We'd like to request a continuance until the next hearing.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next one is 242-1825 Willcrest.
Can you do this in 5 minutes? No joke, 5 minutes.
Good evening. For the record, Greg Hockmuth from Williams and Sparagus, representing the applicant, Aimco North Andover LLC, for the notice of intent filed for their property, otherwise known as Royal Crest. I think everybody knows where this is. I believe Mary Rimmer did an ANRAD out here not too long ago,
November
identified all the resource
2019.
areas. The notice of intent's being filed to replace all of their subsurface gas tanks to new propane tanks that are going to be above ground. So we've submitted a plan set that shows temporary access, erosion controls. We described a construction methodology. I will point out that the temporary stockpile areas that we show really are just to show you that there will be one, but they may not be in that exact location. In talking with somebody that knows a lot more about this than I do, they said they'll probably be in the way as they're currently shown, and I agree. So the intent is to put the new tanks in, which will sit on a round concrete pad that will be set on stone, and do 2 buildings at a time, only 2 per day, so they can do a careful, clean job. Once the new tank is installed and everything is plumbed, they'll dig and remove the existing tanks. They'll temporarily stockpile the material that they need to excavate to remove the tanks that are buried next to the hole. When the new tank is removed, they'll put it back in and then bring in fill, stone, whatever they need to, cover it, loam it, seed it, and be done. There's several buildings, multiple buildings that are within your jurisdiction. There's numerous buildings that are outside your jurisdiction. They intend to do the ones that are outside the commission's jurisdiction first, and then slowly move through if the commission issues an order of conditions for the rest. We do have a file number. There are no comments. It should be a pretty clean job.
Joe?
They're 500-gallon tanks.
This seems pretty straightforward. We would typically want to take a buried structure out, for the purpose of just simply removing it, but what we're replacing with is an above ground, so we're really not gaining anything in the long run. What's in question here is the integrity of the existing tanks. That's what's driving this whole project, correct?
That's correct.
And are they leaking, or are they just beginning to show deterioration, and it's preventive maintenance? I mean, I really don't understand what necessitates the work within the area that's going to require, in essence, a waiver to do the work.
Yeah, so that's a good question. Do you have any insight on?
Yeah, I might take that. So the tanks are definitely leaking. We had Eastern Propane come out and do an analysis on them, and the tanks had to be removed from underground. They've been in the ground since the building was built way back then. So they have to be removed, definitely.
And I will say all the new tanks are proposed outside the no-build zone. So there's no waiver being requested.
It's a safety matter at this point.
And, are the new tanks being proposed in the general vicinity of the existing tank? They are.
There was one unit where we had to shift it quite a bit to get it 50 feet away and avoid digging up walkways. It just made sense to put it where we're proposing it.
Yeah, that was my question exactly, is it a plumbing question that's driving the location of the tanks, requiring the waiver for the new location? Let me ask the question differently. Are the new tanks requiring any waivers at all?
No.
No.
No, we
So
comply 100%.
it's only the removal of the existing that required the waivers?
Right.
Okay, so
Wouldn't that be an exempt activity?
it's not a public utility in existing roadway, so no.
It's not
No.
exempt?
No, it's not an existing public utility in an existing
It's
right-of-way.
not the roadway.
So it's
Within
really
pavement of existing
temporary,
right-of-way,
temporary work, really.
yeah. So it's not exempt, but, I guess if we're getting the tanks outside of the 50, then we're fine, and I'm fine with the permanent sense.
I just hate the idea of calling it a waiver. You're getting a tank out.
Well, that's what I'm saying, I theoretically,
It's-
not technically, it's a waiver,
It's temporary disturbance of the 25-foot no disturb zone.
but this is the benefit, it's a benefit to get it out of our resource.
This is the one that flipped me on the previous. Because before I looked into this, that's kind of what, I was no on the previous one, but this one, it's if there's a net benefit. We have a tank in the 25-foot no disturb. We really don't have a mechanism for waiving the 25-foot no disturb, but there is a net benefit. So, this is kind of where I see that balance.
So I've abandoned underground tanks, albeit, petrol, fuel oil, one propane tank for that matter. It doesn't physically take removing the tank. You can evacuate the propane from it and fill them in place, in situ, and minimize that disturbance. Was that considered as an alternative, and why are you going in that direction?
I think in the long run, it makes sense to get the tanks out of the ground.
It's a big project coming here down the road anyway. Aren't they gonna all come out in the end? I mean, honest to God, I think disturbing
like-
the area to dig a tank out, as opposed to cutting the top open and filling it full of flowable fill, is a much better alternative.
Yeah.
It minimizes our impact.
And it being a viable alternative, we don't have to issue a waiver.
Right.
Well,
It's a viable.
I don't know that you're gonna, even if you evacuate it, I don't know that they're gonna, it's a gas, it's not like it's an oil or something, so if you were to start to cut into it, I think you run into a safety issue on a propane tank versus,
Yeah, you'd have to empty the tank and then somehow pierce the tank and fill that with fill, and then you'd still get a metal tank in the ground. It makes sense to us just to get it out of there. Fill it with,
Where the tanks are actively leaking, we could have contaminated soil, within those.
Maybe, I don't know what propane does. No, I know what fuel oil does, darn sure. And I don't know what propane does.
so I will say, all of the areas are existing lawn areas. So, to dig up a lawn, remove a tank, put in some fill, loam it and seed it, it's gonna be lawn afterwards. It's not a big project.
I don't see any less disturbance taking up the top to remove it and flow fill it versus.
What's the size of the tanks?
500-gallon tanks. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that what's in the ground too? Yeah.
Yeah.
Only 500-gallon tanks for those big buildings?
All it does is,
LPG
hot
though.
water. We have electric heat, it just does the hot water. Excuse me, that's.
500 gallons isn't a hell of a lot for a building that size.
Okay, 500
They
gallon
must
tanks
have
in
went there pretty regular.
10,000 square foot.
But they've got the, it's tough to get the gas company on the phone these days, but they've got the gas company lined up, and they did start. And they're hoping as soon as they're done with the buildings outside of the commission's jurisdiction, they can just keep going this season, get everybody back online before winter.
Okay. Jack, any more questions?
Yeah, I've asked a few, and I'm satisfied with the responses.
I guess I don't have any other questions. I think I've asked them.
Okay. But one of my questions was answered, was how big the tanks were. Now, you got to evacuate them as you go along. Where are they going to put that gas, in the new tanks or in a truck?
That's a good question.
It's gonna be, so when this is gonna be done, Eastern Propane is gonna be on site, they're gonna evacuate the tank right then and there, pull them out and put the new ones up there, so.
What are they gonna put them in? What are they gonna put the gas in? A truck, or are they gonna put them in
Oh,
a
a tanker truck. Yep.
A tanker truck? Okay. And you understood what I was talking about, how the stockpiles are in the way?
Yeah, well, I went back and looked, and they were all in the way.
Okay.
Yeah, and then what I heard from the office was, well, we just wanted to show that there was going to be one, not exactly in that spot.
Okay.
But it didn't make sense to revise the whole plan set.
No, that's fine. So what you're saying is you're gonna install the new tanks, and then you're gonna dig out the old tanks?
Yes,
Okay.
2 at a time,
Two
only
at a
2 per
time.
day.
So one, like pretty much one cluster of buildings or pages with, we'd like to, it'd be nice to know which one you're doing, when you're doing them. I don't, as far as the plumbing inspector saying that you need bollards, these are one-day jobs that you have an activity doing.
We'd be happy to send an email to the Conservation Department letting them know which buildings were being done on each day.
That would be good. I don't have any questions. Those are the questions I had. And it is what it is. Although it seems kind of funny you're putting all these tanks in now, and they're redeveloping that site, hopefully. Hopefully in my lifetime anyways.
Safety thing, that's why.
Pardon me?
It's the safety thing.
It's a safety thing.
Safety thing?
Yeah, with some of them. I
After
leave.
40-something years, now we're worried about propane.
So let me just ask if it's a safety issue and it's not an exempt activity, why isn't it an enforcement order? Instead of granting a waiver for removal, why don't we issue an enforcement order to remove? And then the NOI can be to replace. I'm just saying, I understand it'll accomplish the same mission.
The commission steps beyond its bounds, identifying that it's a safety issue on our own volition to waive a provision of our bylaw. I don't think we should go there.
Okay,
Yeah.
just put it out there. No more questions?
Okay.
So a drafted decision, so you can close and issue tonight.
Well, we can't, because we have to vote on the waiver first.
Oh, this, sorry.
If we don't vote on the waiver, we're not issuing anything, and that brings us back to that same square.
I have one more question to ask. So
You got it.
we asked a question about leakage of the tanks and what happens to the soil around it. I mean, do we know if there's a reportable release in does a contingency plan kick into effect that negates anything we're about to do here? Have you guys even studied that yet?
So I met with the fire department, they was out there a couple of weeks ago, and they said that they would be on site, and they thought that even if there was a little bit of leakage, it wouldn't cause any disturbance. That's what.
So the reason I asked the question is when you dig up an oil tank,
Yep.
and if there was a release, you stockpile them stuff, and suddenly what you intended to do for one day is covered with plastic for the next 3 months until it does its stuff and gets categorized and manifested out of the site. So we're only going to allow what's being allowed and what's being proposed. Once that contingency plan comes in, you might end up coming back to us for some sort of a modification. If you have to keep the stuff there longer, the stockpiles become longer than anticipated.
Yep, understood.
We can't vote on approval because we got the waiver, correct? We
Yes.
can't
Get the waiver
approve-
first.
We have to vote on the waiver first.
Right, and
We
then
have
we
to-
could approve the project as it stands? I mean, should we?
If we grant a waiver, then it's assumed that the order of conditions will be as requested.
Okay,
That's what the waiver would facilitate.
yeah, all right. I'm not, like, I'm in the dark about propane gas leaking into the soils.
So the one good thing about some buildings being out of our buffer, they're gonna start that, and we're gonna see how things go.
Should we require to have those paid?
Nope.
No.
Not our jurisdiction.
And I think it sounds like they're relying on Eastern Propane to know all the protocols to do this, whether they need an LSP or not, whether they need to.
It's 25.
But Joe asked one question that hasn't been answered yet. Who's analyzing the soil around the leaking tank?
I know it's out there, it's just an
But it's a valid question.
I know
There's
if it
soil-
was
there's
fuel
soil around
oil,
the tank.
there's a very defined procedure that I know.
Right.
Inherently, I know it.
So
I don't know propane at all.
nor do I, but so that's why that needs to be.
I know it's liquid in the tank, but it gasifies when, prior to getting it through a regulator, before it comes into the furnace.
So-
Once it starts leaking, is it simply just turning to gas and coming
So
out?
does anybody
I
else
have no
think
idea.
that we should have that question answered before we go forward? Or, I know I'm usually the one that does it, but I mean,
I
is
think
that a
this
question?
isn't, I think this isn't the first time an underground LPG tank has been excavated and remediated if necessary. I think that Eastern Propane will absolutely do what they need to do. I brought it up first because I know that when you get, propane refilling in those tanks all the time, there's other stuff that goes in there. There's condensation, there's other materials that go in there with propane.
If the commission wants to table this, I have a 21E expert that I can call, and we can revisit this later in the meeting, and I can find out what this all means. I'm not a 21E expert.
Anybody
Neither
interested
are
in
we.
tabling this and getting a 21E discussion, or do you want, does
I'd
everybody
like
feel?
to hear the answer.
Does everybody, anybody else?
Another alternative would be,
Table?
Yeah, quick Google search didn't yield any.
Motion to table.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
All right,
Opposed, that's unanimous.
you're in last place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Next one is 242, 1828, 175 Old Cart Way.
that's not gonna work, I lost one of the clips. You read the most easel? Oh, yeah. Great, thank you. Let's hear it.
Dave sets up, I'll give you a quick recap. So, this project involves an in-ground pool, expansive patio, fire pit, spa, grading, and landscaping. All work is out of the 50-foot no-build zone. The wetland line was a little dubious at first, looked at it with Hancock, and it was agreed that we needed a soil scientist to come on site and take a look, just because the vegetation was exhibiting both wetland and upland characteristics, almost 50-50 down the line. So we have a wetland line that's been reviewed by two wetland scientist and Lucas Environmental, there's soil scientist experts. And we have a line that I'm comfortable with now. So, conservation staff provided a bunch of comments prior to the last meeting, all of which have been addressed in these revised plans. We have native landscaping species that have been switched out from the original plan. So we have a nice native mix. And most of the activity in the buffer is really tree clearing, grading, replanting of natives, and a couple corners of the retaining wall and patio. So, that's it.
Thank you, Amy. For the record, my name is David Cowell. I'm a senior wetland scientist. Oh, go ahead, deliberate.
Do you have any questions first?
Okay, yeah.
I guess my first question, that glanced right out, is I was trying to understand what. There was a line that was clear to me, other than the reference that says 30-foot wide access easement plan such and such, see note 3, and I read note 3. And there's an awful lot of improvement within that access easement. And I do remember that when, I forget the name of the development, but it was Ivan Cormier's development as it attached into Old Cart Way. There were a lot of access easements to trail areas and open space areas. I want to make sure that that doesn't run in favor to something that the town is entitled to. You know, who has rights to that access easement? And not so much concerned about areas outside the improvement, but areas up near our resource that I think could tangentially fall jurisdictional to us, because if it is in fact an access easement, these folks don't want to be putting their fire pit in the middle of our access, and if it is our access, we don't want to be walking through their fire pit. I think there's more to be researched and presented here before we get into the nitty-gritty of the proposal itself.
So that was the first thing that came to mind to me too, was who's got rights to that easement?
You might have been the engineer on the original subdivision, right?
Hayes was.
Hayes was, yeah.
I was not involved.
Yeah.
But, yes, that's my only question is who has rights to that access easement, and do you have the ability to encumber that easement by blocking people's rights to pass and repass? If it's something that's been extinguished, I wouldn't have an issue, but if it's something that others have rights to, I think that becomes a problem.
And I raised it in the context that my vague recollection, God, it's gonna be 25 years ago. My vague recollection is there was so much open space associated with development and adjacent to the TTOR land and to the,
Yeah, I think there was some issues with like ancient ways for horse paths and stuff.
exactly. I think there's a lot to this that may have benefited the town and the public in general than this notation on the plan suggests. So I really need to understand that before we get into any other detail.
So basically, what we'll have to do is gonna have to be continued until we get a description of the easement, what the use is. And, because that easement is very important from commissioners that have been here longer than I have. And from looks at it, it goes right through your project. So,
Go ahead. Yeah, no.
go
Can I say
ahead.
something?
Yes.
Prior to finishing the design work of the project, when the Hancock did the survey, obviously, when the easement came, my landscape architect says that, okay, we need to define we need to have some definition for this access. I did a thorough research. In fact, I spent almost 4 months. This easement has not been recorded anywhere. I looked at the registry. I went back to the closing attorney. He did 100 years of a title search, and this easement has never been registered. It was in a proposed drawings of the original wagon wheel. I forgot the name of the proposed plan, but when was the old cartway development was happening, in a proposed plan, it was there in the easement, but it was never registered. So,
It's on a land court plan, isn't it? It's shown on a land court plan.
it is only it's only showing in a proposed survey plan.
The plan number references the land court plan number, isn't it?
Yeah, that,
That looks like a land court number.
yeah, that's not a,
I think the question is very real.
yeah, no,
And,
that's,
great that you did the research, you may have some high confidence because of that, but we need a real legal answer to this, because
Even the town inspector said that he didn't see the easement in his records. Because I spoke with the town inspector as well. Because I truly spent a good amount of time.
it shows on the subdivision plan,
What was that? I'm
it
sorry?
shows on that old subdivision plan.
All subdivision proposed plan.
Correct. And on the definitive plan at the registry, it is recorded as well, on that,
right, it doesn't have to be meted out if it's shown on a plan.
that's right.
But I even checked with the registry too, like.
Yeah, we're not gonna grant a legal opinion here, but I think there's a real question here.
You know, it's, I think someone needs to define property rights and define it. I mean, if a property attorney writes a letter, or a professional land surveyor writes a letter with an opinion, at least that gets us clear.
Yeah.
From a wetland standpoint, I don't think there's a problem with the plan. From a, property rights standpoint, which is something that does affect our ability to act, because you have to have rights.
And typically, I'd be confident with the statement of our ordinance condition that simply say that we grant no rights beyond this permit itself. But I vaguely recall that some of these rights were in fact to open space into other abutting areas and trail networks and whatnot. I think there's something there.
Yeah, no, it's,
So, just so that I can understand this very clearly, when the design were sent for the approval initially, I'm talking the beginning of this year, it was approved by the building department and plumbing department, whatever it comes, and then at the end, it came to the conservation department, right? Is it true? Is it how it worked? Because if the building department approved it, I'm not sure why
well,
this,
the building department would only have jurisdiction over the pool, per se, maybe the pergola. And those are all proposed outside the easement. They only deal with structures in their applicability to zoning. I don't know that the fire pit area has a patio and
They would not.
in the retaining wall, it doesn't look like it's high enough that they would be considered structures, so the building inspector wouldn't have jurisdiction over those. The pool and possibly the pergola would be subject to the building inspector approval, and those are located exclusive of that 30-foot.
All right, so we have to give this applicant direction. What kind of direction should we give them? Because this is out of my,
I think in the end, it's a legal opinion. And
right.
I don't know, usually if we have a issue with a legal opinion, they get one, and what do? Look at town council to give us one?
We ask town council to review the one that they submit, you mean?
Correct.
Yeah, we don't,
It's not clear to us.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very specific area. Very, very specific area.
You understand what we're asking for?
What's that?
Do you understand what we're asking for?
Yes, I do understand what you're asking. But again, I'm trying to understand the mechanism by which to review this, as you're implying perhaps a conversation with town council. Yeah, as professional surveyors, we're very well versed in looking at land court records and looking at registry of deeds and historical
A
things.
qualified person, whether it's an RPLS or an RPE
Yep.
or a land attorney, has to render an opinion on what that is.
Right. So unfortunately, and regretfully, I'm a wetland scientist, and we didn't bring a survey representative this evening who evaluated this, so I can't speak in their behalf.
So that's what we're looking for, right?
Yeah,
Right.
I think it's an attorney. I think it deals with land rights, not survey issues. It's the right to use an easement, and it's going to
Right.
require interpretation of deeds and other documents that are on record.
Really a lawyer.
Well, that's what okay, so that's what I'm trying to understand, whether or not your town council can say
No,
yes
we're not
or
gonna
no,
do-
or if
No, you have
Mr.
to- you have to-
Pushpat would need to
you have to
retain
do the
legal
work.
counsel.
You have to
You
work
have
in
to
it,
do the work and bring it to us.
and then we'll give it to town council to review.
Yeah, town council's not going to do the work for you.
No, you have to hire a private attorney to do the work, and then they'll review your document and give us a decision.
least that's-
Just
at least that's
like a title search.
At least that's what we're looking for.
Right, understood, yep. So what I'll do is, I'll go back and talk to our professional land surveys to the capacity that they can do this, but if you guys mandate that the property attorney needs to provide a
I don't
report
know
on
that
this.
PLS determines property rights, they determine lines and extents.
But they're versed in review of these things,
They're
and,
not going to provide a legal opinion as to who has rights of that property.
okay, all right, understood.
Because whatever you get us, we're going to probably say, okay, now town council, take a look at this, and if you like, what's this from an RPS?
Sure.
You're going to be like, oh, now we got to, just to facilitate efficiency, I would
That's why
recommend doing
we're
that.
trying to give you direction.
Yep,
To get
absolutely, yep.
Get an opinion from a lawyer.
That's clear as day, okay. So,
Okay.
what I would ask is if we do continue the public hearing while we resolve the matter of the easement rights, if the commission has any other questions on the development aspects, we understand that this is, what we have proposed in front of you tonight is contingent upon validation that we have the rights to construct in that easement. But I just want to know if you guys have any questions on our proposed project, so that if we do have any other plan revisions or response to comments, that we can not only get the attorney to review the easement rights prior to the next hearing, but we can
Well,
also respond to any
We're
questions.
gonna have 2 weeks to review the plan. Now, we don't have, it's a pretty busy, application. It's probably gonna take you 2 weeks to get a legal opinion, and then we have to get it reviewed by our town council. So we'll have plenty of time to review the plan. I would suggest you continue to the next meeting,
Yep,
and see how we've progressed legally.
right.
And that'll give us 2 weeks to review the plan more intensely, and then we might have questions.
Pass information on to Amy.
And just some basic questions, wetland related. It looks like, okay, is all proposed work going to be contained with upland of the erosion control as indicated on the plan?
Yes.
Okay, so contained within there, stockpile area.
Yep.
You have proper setbacks. Okay.
It looks like all the work's within the 75 and the 100.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
It looks,
for the in-ground pool and the elements of construction, the 100-foot buffers, usually I bring highlighters with me. This is the first time I've been at a public hearing in a long time. But the buffer zone line is this line here, and it's this square footprint where there's just some grading that needs to be done to level the pool area above it. And, you know, Amy said that she did review the preliminary plan that we signed. Initially, we had, I think, propane tanks that were in the 100-foot buffer. She asked if we could relocate those to move them out. We had our storage area in the 100-foot buffer. She asked if we could relocate that. We had proposed, the landscape architect plan had non-native ornamental landscape plants in the buffer zone. We were asked to revise that to native species, which we've
yeah,
done.
all good
So-
improvements with
Sure,
cooperation
yep.
with Amy, for sure.
Great.
I guess my last question
Yeah.
is, basic question, I guess. Are there any waiver requests associated with this project?
No,
Waiver of the bylaw? No,
No.
okay.
no, it's
I'm
just-
done then, Lou.
Yeah, it's outer 100-foot buffer zone, your 50-foot no build is detailed here, your 25 no foot in the wetlands line is out here. So this is between the 100 and the 50, here's the no build there.
I think one thing you need to prepare for the next meeting is down in that area that is jurisdictional, just inside the 100 and before the 50.
Yeah.
Is that's a 10-foot fill. There's a notation about proposed propane tanks, and I think there's something that indicates that might be a retaining wall of some sort. I see TW notations, top of wall. We see no detail of a 10-foot sized wall, which, by the way, is a structure.
Yeah, there is no 10-foot wall.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a
Yeah, we
salt.
understand that, yeah, civil engineers can design walls up to 4 feet in height beyond that, which we need a structural engineer. But no, there's no, that's, it,
So when you're putting
If there
boulder,
were
you're putting a
retaining walls,
boulder
there
wall
would-
in there?
I'm sorry?
You're putting a boulder wall in there?
The what in the
A
wall?
boulder wall?
Boulder wall.
From
Oh,
the
no,
84 to
No.
From 90 to
Like
84.
a riprap wall, or is that what you're saying?
boulder, it's not riprap, it's gotta be bigger than that, it's holding back,
No, I think it's cement, but no, it's not necessarily a retaining wall in the capacity that you guys are envisioning. The reason that we have the tapered grading that's detailed on our plan is to avoid the necessity of a retaining wall.
okay, what I
If we
see,
had a retaining wall, we wouldn't need the,
what I see at the bottom there is 84, there's a spot grade showing 84 existing. I see a pool that's at 94, the pool is pretty flat, otherwise the wouldn't hold water. So let's call the apron around the pool 94-ish.
Yep.
Makes it 10 feet. It's a pretty good sized slope, and you gotta show us how you're gonna do that.
If this were at all,
Right.
it's about 2 feet. It looks like it's just a decorative wall, because the top and bottom of the wall, it's showing like 33.8 and 31.8, and then it comes off at a 3-to-1.
that's my understanding, yeah.
Yeah, that's,
But this is the feedback we're looking for, so that prior to the next hearing, while we do the easement rights, is that if you need clarification on these items, I can get ahead of the game and provide clarification.
yeah, it's actually,
I know, I spoke to Amy about that, because we had concerns about the, we had concerns about the tanks and they moved them.
Exactly. That's exactly, because it's not top of wall here.
I can't even see it. The,
yeah, that
No
corner,
walls
you're
are more
right.
than 4 feet. No walls are more than 4 feet tall.
Yeah.
Everything is 4 feet. Yeah.
So that one is 6 feet.
So what was, did I hear a concern about the tanks?
no, we had talked about, because I guess you wanted to put the tanks in, again, I'm not even, and we asked to move them because you were gonna put them on the slope, and we were trying to figure out how you're gonna make it level. It
it's on a flat level area.
Now it is.
Now it is.
Yeah, now it is, yeah.
Now it is, but it wasn't before. Like I said, I'm really having a hard time with elevations. To see them. Because that corner is, it needs soil removed, right?
Now that I can see,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
6 feet in that corner.
6 foot total, both wall opposite, correct?
No, it's a 6 foot, it's showing 93 to 87 in that corner.
Okay, and that's, so it's 6 foot wall in that corner.
Yes.
All right, so that's what I first was seeing, was something.
Yeah, and then it drops pretty quickly to 2 feet, but.
So my point is, we need to see some sort of detail there, and given the amount of fill in that area, it begs the question, so how do you get it in? And you need to show us stockpiles, you need to show us access, we don't see any of that stuff here.
There's a stockpile area, but the construction
No one here big
access.
Stockpile area detailed on our plan.
No one near big enough for the size of this project.
No, that, it's gonna be a lot of material. And how much, what's the yardage, Joe, for, what's the planning or zoning for filling? Or
For what?
remo-
For
For
fill?
filling or removing?
I don't know that number. Is it in general, or is it just in the watershed? No, there's two different thresholds, in general and then the watershed.
Yeah,
I don't know the numbers.
I don't know either.
Stockpile is gonna be my driveway, because we're gonna replace the driveway at the end of the project as well.
But we're talking on the backside. With
We
the,
have some homework to do on this ourselves, because that
That's what
original
I said.
subdivision, there was
But-
a lot of compensatory flood
Yeah,
storage
so-
issues, and what was filled and not filled, and
We
what was,
need some history on the project.
yeah, we need some of the original history from
We
when
need
this
some
was
original,
first
the original,
permitted.
the original filing.
Okay.
okay, so here,
On-
so
on the
we'll
whole.
continue it for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the meantime, you get your lawyer, so you get it drafted as quickly as possible, so that we can have our town attorney
Sure.
review it,
Yep.
and then we can move forward with this project.
So some of the things I can propose is we can do, we can add an insert at a higher scale, just at the 100-foot buffer zone on the grading, so it's more legible, that you guys can read. I can ask if they can provide us a cross-section of that wall detail, that details.
I would like to see the elevations better than it's like microfilm.
What scale is this plan now?
Well, it's because it was reduced to 11 by 17. It's actually pretty legible on the full size.
On the big one,
1 to 20 on the right.
okay.
That's what we used to require, was 1 to 20, was the requirement.
Sure. That's another option, is I can provide full-size print copies, or even a couple of them to be around the table for you guys to read.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
See,
Okay.
it'll benefit you
Yeah.
if we can see it.
Yeah.
I guess the others, I'm sorry.
No, good.
The other standard question is cartridge type filter on the pool, not a diatomaceous
That's
area?
in our order conditions.
Yeah, all right, so that's.
All right, so, motion to continue.
Motion continued.
One quick question, sorry.
Go ahead.
Can I go back to the closing attorney, because I think,
Good.
which attorney should I be using?
I
Because-
would use a land attorney, right?
We can't advise you on who to hire as a lawyer. Your judgment's gonna be as good as any of ours.
You want to use the attorney that's going to give you the answer that you believe.
I have local recommendations.
I recommend you one that gives you the right answer.
Right.
No,
Because,
let-
see, that's,
town council.
Find an attorney whose discipline involves interpretation of road use, easements, ancient ways, somebody that specializes in land
I'm
use.
sure these
I have
guys
several
can recommend
recommendations I can
somebody,
make of local property
because
attorneys.
I'm sure
Yeah,
they're
land use
involved in
attorneys.
legal issues sometimes. All right, so,
I'm kind of working on this since last year. It's just,
So you need a couple more weeks.
all right.
Okay.
So before I let you go, so if there's sections of the wall that are more than 4 feet,
They need to be done by a structural engineer.
right,
That's right.
okay.
So I'll
And-
validate that with our,
And building department will require that, so maybe
Yep.
get ahead of that.
oh, absolutely, yep.
Okay, all
I'm
right,
aware
so
of that standard.
I
Yeah,
wanted to
yeah.
make sure.
Yeah, no,
All right.
that's, and we're liable as a civil engineering firm that we don't do that. We cannot.
That's easy engineering. From our perspective, it comes to construction sequencing.
Yep.
You know, if the wall footing, the structure has to be on original ground or engineered compacted fill, you can't build it upon this rubble wall that you're looking to fill arbitrarily.
Right.
You gotta, it's almost, you gotta put the wall in first where it needs to be in,
Yep.
and then fill it accordingly, and then riprap. It's a sequence thing far more than, putting a stamp on a footing.
Oh,
It's
yep,
how it
we're
is
very
that
well
it gets
versed.
built,
Yep,
the
yep.
order in which it gets built.
Sure, so
Joe, I just want to make sure you know that the grading behind the wall, those circles, those are plantings, so it's not boulder.
Those are not boulders.
Yes, those are plantings,
They're
yes.
not boulders.
Sorry, I misunderstood what you were
No, that's
asking.
all right.
Yeah,
Is that a one-to-one slope?
Those are shrubs.
No, it looks like it's 3 to 1 or so.
Is it 3 to 1? All right.
Yeah,
I couldn't scale from this, but
It'd have to be to maintain it as a soil slope. 2 to 1 gets really tough.
I think what's throwing me is that that is in fact 1 foot contour intervals and not 2.
Yes.
So it looks steeper.
All right, we need a motion to continue.
You have it.
We need a second.
There's a 6 feet
The
wall.
very northerly corner. Let's see,
It's,
I got a thing
There you go.
right
Yeah, right there.
here.
according to the elevation, it's a 6 feet.
Although, you know what? Is it a parapet type wall? Is it exposed, like a seat wall?
That's the detail we're asking for.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Okay, so we got a
That's why the
motion,
That's why the 20 scale is gonna be important.
we got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Thank you.
Thanks.
I didn't see this. All right. Where am I here? It's all card. 242, 1692, requested continue to October 19th for a special meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous.
one abstention.
One abstention. Me.
You did.
You abstained.
I abstention. Next one is request RDA for a 920 Johnson Street.
920 Johnson.
Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the applicant, we'd like to withdraw the RDA for 920 Johnson Street
Thank you.
without prejudice. We're going to be filing a notice of intent very soon for a different project on the same property.
Built-in pool.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Next one is 29 South Bradford Street.
That's not, is it? I gotta find the plan. You guys may have better plans in your hand than what's gonna be projected, so. Terrible. All right, well, let me just start with all right. So, this project involves removal and reconstruction of 3 existing non-compliant sets of stairs and landings, 1 at the rear house and 2 at the front. The rear stairs is currently located between the 25 and the 50, and are proposed to be removed and replaced with a 3 by 6 by 4 landing and 6 8-inch steps. Expansion will occur closer to the BVW by 2.5 feet. And right now, they're just completely non-compliant to building code, so they have to go and get replaced. Let's see. Waiver request has been submitted. The front stairs between the house and the garage are located just outside of the 50, and are proposed to be removed and replaced with a 10 by 7 deck with 2 steps. The front entry stairs, located between the 50 and the 100, are proposed to be removed and replaced with a 6 foot by 3 foot 6-inch landing and 4 8-inch steps. So all the stairs and landings are metal prefabricated and will be craned in place. helical piers will be used to support the new stairs and platforms. Material stockpile will be at the front of the house, in the outer reaches of the buffer zone, and construction access will be through the driveway and the north side of the house to access the rear stairs, and part of that will be within the 25. And we reviewed the wetland line, and we agree with the delineation. So I think that what I might do is send around a full-size plan. Because that's So that's the back. That's the
50?
25, that's the 50. Yep.
I have no issue with the two front steps. I mean, I have a question about the steel framing, but I guess that's what they're proposing. Would expect to see the wood or precast concrete, but steel nonetheless. The reason why I fixate on that is the rear stair, if it were in fact precast concrete, that access is gonna be a little tight to get, that stairway around the back. Steel, I think they could hoof it in if they needed to. The proposal does say steel. My question in the back, though, specifically is the existing stair platform and where it is in the same location. Does this extend further?
Yes.
How much further?
I measured it today, and it was, I'm gonna say exactly 2 feet, 7 inches, give or take the,
Closer?
it's further out from the bottom of the last step will be 2 feet, 7 inches difference from what's there currently.
And what's driving that? Is it the size of the platform?
It's just the size of the platform and, bringing it to a safe condition exiting the house with a platform present instead of immediately going down the stairs. And as you can see, the concrete last 2 steps that they built
So
aren't exactly,
if the platform is a code issue that has to be a certain size in order to maneuver and open the door and whatnot, did you consider an alternative of then having the stair, rather than extending straight out, just come down to the side of the rear of the building?
yes, Amy and I mentioned that we should consider that, and we have considered that. There is additional cost, potential structural issues, ongoing maintenance issues that would cause from having that. There's, what you can't see from this is part of that, that's a sort of a deck platform in the mudroom space, so there's no actual existing structure for that to sit against at that point. And then when it comes down on the side of the back of the garage, it would require additional carpentry work, flashing, ongoing maintenance to make sure that that doesn't penetrate from all the rain and snow that will be shoveled off or be splashing there. So it'd be, as well as the manufacturer's recommendation, although the contractor is sure they can put the helical piers for the sideways stairs, the manufacturer's recommendation is to pour a pad in place, which would also increase the cost as well as the disturbance, which is why we chose to go with helical piers instead of doing sonotubes or a pad, was to reduce the amount of impact to the wetlands and the property in general.
So to do that, it just simply pushes that structure that
Correct.
approximately 2 feet closer.
And there is a retaining wall that was present when we purchased the house that extends further than that towards the wetland area. That's the distance. So it comes out 9 feet.
Yeah.
So this is the walkout basement, and, you know, there are, it's not the greatest retaining wall,
There's-
but it's,
There's no alternative to bring it down the side there.
yeah,
Right.
so. that's-
Also,
so we-
okay.
so-
to go down the side would also impede on the existing gas and water spigot that's there, or oil rather.
I'm all set.
I'm also all set.
No questions?
Yeah, as long as they use the vertical piles, I have no questions. Those won't cause much disturbance.
So we need a motion and a waiver.
So the steps won't be any further than what's existing in terms of the sidewalls coming out of the retaining. Well,
This is an RDA.
So we're either
Well-
letting the work move forward or we're not, so I'm inclined to let it move forward.
Okay, so make a motion.
What are you looking for?
well, I was going to recommend a -3 with conditions.
So is that the cleanest?
That's the cleanest motion. I'm making it.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Jeremy. So I'll write up that permit and get it out to you. I'll try for this week, but probably next week. Okay, thanks. Thank you so much. Thanks.
For 242-1824.
So the commission will recall issuing an enforcement order for unauthorized disturbance in the buffer zone and wetland, requiring an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation to be submitted. So we've been working towards getting the wetland delineated, getting it onto a survey plan. I visited the site 3 or 4 times to walk the wetland line. It was quite extensive. Requested a number of wetland flag adjustments, some other various plan notations. I'm not sure if is that the plan that,
This is the original plan.
oh, the original plan, okay. So we're gonna get a revised plan, but that was the. So, right now, we're just waiting for the revisions to the plan, and the applicant and his wetland consultant would like to address you regarding some issues they have.
Okay. We're just waiting for this.
Yeah.
Right now, we have a continuance, correct? But this needs to be continued?
It will be, because we
Okay.
don't have
All
a
right.
final
The other-
plan
The
in
other
front of
question
us.
is, I know, Maureen, you're asking for a fee reduction. I spoke today with the town manager, and we are not allowed by law to modify, adjust, or eliminate fees. So even if we thought we could, we can't. So the fee stands what it is. We have no jurisdiction on that. That's what I was told, and Amy was there. So fees can't be adjusted or waived or eliminated. So save you time to ask for it and take up time, our time, your time.
So,
Go ahead.
if I may, so this is an active farm, Stryker Farm. I submitted a last-minute letter, and I do apologize for that. I was under the impression the canceled meeting was going to be continued to October 13th, so that would give the commission some time to review it. But my client here, Romaine, he purchased the property always with the intent to do farming on the property. He has begun some farming activities, including planting fruit trees, incorporating beehives, wants to sell some vegetables. He's in the process of selling chickens and chicken eggs as well. He's has made a profit, you know, in terms of selling the goods. And the assessor's office has noted that it is land within agriculture, that it is an active farm within the town. Given that, I'd like the commission to acknowledge that, yes, this is an active farm. If you need more documentation, I'm more than happy to provide that to you.
I have to ask you a question, Maureen.
Sure.
This commission is not in the practice of declaring a parcel active farmland or not. That's done by the Board of Assessors and/or the Board of Selectmen. That's not within our purview. We've never declared anything active or inactive in the past that I'm aware of.
So I do have a letter from the chief assessor, Bill Mitchell.
From who?
The chief assessor,
Okay.
Bill Mitchell.
Yeah.
That recognizes that, yes, this is Chapter 61A. It's designated as Chapter 61A, and it's land and agriculture.
Okay.
That was recently, correct?
Yes, that was recently.
So here's my, oh, I'm sorry,
So,
continue.
I apologize. So if you have a letter from the assessors authorizing and acknowledging that it's 61A land, you have what you need.
Wonderful. So given that fact, if the commission acknowledges that it's land and agricultural, I don't believe that you can regulate or enforce your local bylaws.
That is incorrect, completely incorrect. First of all, 61A is property tax requirement. It is being used in agriculture, but the land in agricultural use means when the work started. It was presently and primarily used in producing a raisin. It was never presently and primarily, it was in 61B. You transferred it to 61A, and you're now, you know, you have an enforcement order on it.
Correct.
For work that was done prior to it being a farm.
So,
So, I mean,
But
to
Tony,
give,
even if it were 61A or not, there's no exemption.
so if you're
from
presently,
fees.
you
I
can, no
own and
fees.
operate
This
61A
is a-
land, and I'm not exempt from
This is
anything.
a slippery slope, though.
Yeah.
So what they're gonna go to is, land and agricultural use, you're allowed to do agricultural use normal maintenance, which means being able to move, manipulate wetland areas. But they had to be presently and primarily in use.
Actually, I think it was the previous 2 years is on
That-
the application.
that's incorrect.
Well,
Even if you're
when you fill out the application for the assessors, you certify that the land is now and has been in agricultural production, and you not only have to attest to that, you have to put down a dollar amount as to a gross annual figure received from the agricultural production.
And I have that documentation, and I'm more than happy to provide it to
But
the
that's got
commission.
nothing, again, that's not us.
Well, if the commission is satisfied with its land and agricultural, then we can move
We're-
forward.
No.
We're not, we're neither
Two
satisfied,
different
no, not,
definitions.
what is your, what does being satisfied have to do with your application? Then he's not exempt from any fees.
I disagree
He's
with
exempt
you.
under the act.
He's exempt from the
From
bylaw
what?
fees.
From our bylaw and the act, if he's land.
For activities. Did-
Right, but all these activities that prompted the ANRAD occurred prior to becoming considered a farm. He was not presently,
That's what I want, that's what I thought I was hearing you say. We have land that was not previously chapter
it
land.
was open
There was
space
a
recreation.
violation.
No, it
There
was
was a
61B, it
violation.
was 61B previously.
There was a
Yes.
violation,
Correct.
and then they went and got this designation 61A.
That's my understanding of reading the
Okay, so if
timeline.
that sequence is the case, then I think there's a lot to be said of there being a
Sequencing is
potential
important.
flaw. What we have, though, is an application for an ANRAD, and what's driving the fee is the length of the line. It's not waivable, period, under the act or our bylaw.
Correct.
It's not
Fines are the
waivable.
only things I believe we have discretion.
However, they don't have to ask for us to make a determination of the entire line. It's their choice to do so. If they're looking to permit only their activity, they should probably go back and modify their line.
For the whole,
Right.
we asked for the whole
Because of the violation.
The
Because of the
enforcement,
violation, but also understanding that he had, you know, he was talking about other plans, a barn or whatever, and it's in watershed. So we really needed, the commission didn't want the full property.
the commission
What I'm trying to
required.
do
Yes.
is really hone in on it. The fee is driven by the length of the line.
Yes.
And it's non-negotiable.
Okay.
It's what it is.
Yeah.
The only way to make that fee lower is to ask for a lesser line review. It's the only way around it.
All right.
And
Well, I've
because
walked, I've already walked the whole thing, so.
The previous landowner asked for our guidance, and we recommended in the NRAD because they didn't even know what they were doing, and they didn't even know what was their land. And this all started with a chicken coop. So they applied for the NRAD, so therefore they're subject to the fee. I don't understand how our fee reduction.
The
How
fee
about
is, the
land
fee is based
reduction?
on the review of the wetland line by staff. That's the basis of the fee.
The bylaw fee is $6,100. And that was one of the reasons why I asked the commission to consider a waiver and/or reduction.
So we can't.
Can't.
We can't. That's not within our jurisdiction to do.
you just can't do it.
You can't, you just
Fee is a
can't do
fee.
it.
That's
The
what I'm-
town manager told me
Yeah.
by statute,
Yeah.
we cannot
Yes.
change, waiver, or eliminate.
That's a regulated fee, Maureen. We can't waive that. We can't legally waive it at all.
And I just want to clarify where you're coming from. So are you trying to make a nexus between agricultural use and exemption from a fee for a bylaw review? Is that what you're saying?
Correct,
Or-
so under the agricultural regulations in the Wetland Protection Act, it doesn't allow a farmer to just go in and destroy a wetland. That's not what it allows to do.
Correct.
It does allow some certain exempt activities, and namely dimensional setbacks, like your bylaw setbacks of the 25-foot and the
Yeah.
50-foot, you don't have to adhere to those dimensional setbacks.
So the,
And my understanding is the bylaw fees apply as well.
so may I recommend going online to the Mass Farm Bureau site and downloading a copy of a document called Farming in Wetland Resource Areas? Then your answers are right in there, Maureen. Your answers are right in there. That's the book, that's what we go by.
Right. And that's what
And
I.
it doesn't anywhere in there say that we can waive fees. It just doesn't. I've been under 61A for 40 years. I pay my fees.
And from a business perspective, as a farmer, and as a practical matter, it's important for the landowner to know where the resources areas are, so they can undertake the
You have to know.
business to the extent that they want to, and plan their activities accordingly. So it's not as though they're not getting a value out of this NRAD.
And we didn't tell them they had we recommended an MRAD
No.
for the,
We told them under
The
enforcement.
enforcement order required an ANRAD.
It did.
It required an ANRAD and the full property to be
yeah,
delineated.
because they didn't even know what they had.
Right, so it was required under an enforcement
Right.
order.
I think there's value in the application that's before us, and unfortunately,
Well,
it's
you
the
go-
cost of doing business. So there's nothing we can do about it either.
So we can't approve or deny because we can't approve.
So
So we just gotta make a motion to continue to
What
next
is
meeting.
this on the agenda for?
So it's on for an ANRAD.
So-
There's still outstanding items. I need to get the commissioner revised plan. This is the original plan that's been submitted. Amy and I went out, we made some adjustments. So that needs to come back to the commission for approval.
So they're gonna come back for the ANRAD.
So, and I can come back in 2 weeks and I'll have the plan. I do want to look into something regarding the fee. I hear what you're saying, and
Yeah.
you may be right, but I do know that Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, just states that you can't, it prohibits local bylaws from regulating agricultural activities. Your fee is a local bylaw, so I don't see how the fee applies in this scenario if the commission acknowledges it as a farm.
Yeah, it's a regulatory fee, and
The bylaw just gives us the right to make the fee. The regulations are what dictates the fees.
But you sound like you want to continue this.
We have
I'd
to-
like to continue it, and I'd like to just look into this, and
2 weeks, 4 weeks, how many do you want?
I should be ready in 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
2 weeks, please.
Okay, I'm going to move that we continue for 2 weeks at the request.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank
Opposed?
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next one is, well, I'll give it these continuances. 242-1739, Ray Street, continue till October 13th.
So moved.
Need a second?
Which one was that? Second? Second.
242-1739.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. And then 242-1755, Ray Street's lots 4 through 7, requested continue.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Next one is 242-1773, 60 Leanne Drive.
60. You go ahead while I pull it up.
Greg Hockmuth from Williams and Sparagus, representing the applicant for 60 Leanne Drive. This was a project that involved a pretty substantial retaining wall. The project's been completed. Everything's in compliance with the order of conditions. We did hold off on submitting the COC request for a little while just to allow the seed mix to take. And then after the seed mix took, there was one spot that still needed some vegetative cover. That was sodded, and the sod is doing well. So I think the commission has everything they need to issue a certificate of compliance.
So we concur, sites in compliance and stable.
Any questions, Joe? Jack?
Nope.
Al?
No questions.
Sean?
No.
Tony?
No.
Motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Another paper, huh? Okay, next one is 242-1747, 42 Vest Way.
Commission will recall that this is, no, let me get it, sorry. I really need to have these. All right, here we go. So this was a notice of intent for demolition of an existing sunroom deck and patio and associated pavement and construction of 12 by 52 addition in the same footprint of those demolished structures. So this was sort of an in-kind replacement of existing structures with a new formal addition. Mitigation plantings were required. Plantings have been installed, wetland markers are installed. Our field inspector reviewed the plantings, and they're doing well. Site is stable, and the project is in compliance, so we would recommend issuing a certificate of compliance. The Commission modified the plan, allowing the planting locations to be moved around a little bit, but that's it.
No questions.
No, sir.
No questions.
Motion.
Move that we issue a full and complete certificate of compliance with ongoing conditions as prescribed by the order of conditions.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Next one is a partial COC for 25 Carriage Chase. 242-255, this is an oldie.
So, this is actually, it's a request for a full certificate, because this order was issued in February of 1985, governed construction of a single-family house on this lot, and this order was never acted upon. It was then replaced by an order under 242292. The project went forward on that subsequent order of conditions, and a certificate of compliance was issued for that order. So this was an old order that never got closed out when, you know, the project got completed. So this is housekeeping, so I recommend issuing a certificate of compliance.
Opposed, not unanimous. Moving right along.
Fish with a fish eye. Let's go.
Okay. Enforcement order, 920 Johnson Street.
What, you're the whole batting squad tonight?
Yeah.
Jeez.
This is really just to provide the commission with an update. This is the project that had fence, wood platform, and wood piles and other items very close to a wetland. It's the same lot we're going to be filing a notice of intent for an in-ground pool that we talked about earlier. Everything's been removed. The only thing that hasn't been done is the posts have not been installed yet with the placards. 2 weeks ago, the client called me on a Sunday. They said they were going to put them in. I asked them to wait so I could check the locations. I went out last week, checked the locations. I moved a couple of their stakes and added a couple stakes. So they're not in yet, but they're going to put them in any day now. But everything else has been addressed.
When are you coming up for NOI?
We're going to try to submit tomorrow.
Tomorrow, for the next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay. So, if they're not in for the next meeting, or Amy's recommendations are met, we'll just start finding.
Understood.
All
I'll
right.
pass that along.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, motion to continue the existing.
Does this require a ratification or?
I think it requires an amendment to the enforcement if you're going to institute fines.
Okay.
I mean, if you're going to do a deadline, a new deadline, and fines if that deadline's not met.
So it sounds like the deadline was the next meeting?
Yeah.
Is the next meeting?
Yep.
So it sounds like if the NOI is not in front of us at the next meeting, the fines will start on that day?
Or the posts aren't installed.
The post.
I'm sorry.
For the post.
Yeah,
Yeah.
This is the
That's-
enforcement order.
sorry. I'm getting ahead of you, Greg.
So
We understand.
fines would start on October 13th if it's not in.
That meeting, whatever the
At the
next
meeting,
meeting
okay.
is.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just trying to keep you out of trouble, Amy.
Next one is 40 Flagship Drive.
How you doing?
So we made some good progress. The basin was almost empty. We had a little bit of rain, now there's a little bit back in it, but they've shifted to draining the upper impoundment area. The wall is coming along the edge of the basin. Slopes are starting to fill in with grass and become vegetated. Let's see, so at this point, we have an enforcement order in place that allows only certain activities. And the rest of the activities listed in the memo from Meridian were put on hold. So notice of intent is pending. They received permission to get onto the downstream properties to start surveying the wetland. So that's in process. And I think that perhaps preparing the basin for final condition might be something the commission should consider at this point. But Bill's here, and he can answer your questions or give you more detail.
No, this is Flagship.
You're okay in this one? Okay. I wasn't sure. Who's not participating in this one? Is everybody in on this one? Yeah. Okay, no, I didn't know, I can't keep up with the recusals. Everybody has a recusal somewhere.
I know.
All right, good. I'm okay, thank you.
I would just comment that the sequence of this project kind of evolved around that lower detention basin being, having water that would not settle out fines, okay? And the applicant has taken great attempts to filter it, and they've been successful at that eventually. And now Amy had suggested that what we do is we install the outlet structure and let the basin function as it was originally designed. It sounds like.
Or start to prepare it, at least, allow them to take the sediment out.
Yeah,
You know.
and, you know, there's a lot of good engineering behind that, and I'm all for that, but there's a reason why it got to the point where it sort of failed. I'll say it failed. And I think it's important that we monitor that outlet structure closely for turbidity and make sure that it is functioning the way it's supposed to function.
So part of that construction, there's an outlet control structure in it that has 6-inch orifices, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna fasten the 5-micron filters into those orifices, so anything that gets to that will actually be filtered going through that as well, kind of. Yep.
That's what I mean.
Yep.
You know, it looks like this is a challenging site
Yeah,
with
but I
challenging
mean-
soils, and let's not declare victory and
No, but I'd like to
think
get
we're
it
done.
stabilized at this point, because right now, I mean,
That was the focus, that's
Yeah,
been the
so-
focus for the past month.
we're pretty much ready to go in there and loom and then hydroseed our way out at this point.
Yeah, you should have been, okay, anyway, those are my comments. I think we need to
Yes.
continue monitoring this, the quality of this stormwater.
I mean, the other thing is gonna be, once that's done, are we able to go up top and start grading that off and kind of graveling that out? And if I I'd like to get the foundation in before the winter hits, so I can stabilize that
Yeah.
back end of that site as well.
Sure.
My steel's not coming until next year, but
Was that not what was requested?
not the foundation, no.
Okay, that was not, okay, got it. All right, well,
I mean, I can hold that off and temp it, but if
One thing
I
at a
put it
time.
in,
Yeah, I apologize, I didn't have questions initially, but Jack just made me think of one. The entire site was out of jurisdiction, if not for the impact which brought it into jurisdiction. As far as the stormwater management is concerned, the analysis, that was all done by the planning board. They're gonna continue to oversee that. There was no need for them to refile with us for the stormwater review. That's, because the functionality of that system, it may not, it could be as simple as mucking out the silt in the bottom, but if that detention pond was intended to do some recharge, and that was part of the calculation, we really gotta make sure that functions that way.
it's a wet basin in clay. It's
It is a
not
wet
gonna-
bed.
Yeah, it's not gonna recharge.
Okay. So it's truly just getting the volume of silt out. Okay. So there's no need for any stormwater review. Planning board's satisfied with that. I'm all set.
So it's not us, it's planning board.
So that's been my question right along. I've asked this question every time. Are we satisfied with the calculations of that pond in the photo, that it's designed to have adequate capacity to service the site? Because once we release, as requested, the top of the site for foundation, he has a secondary holding pond up there that holds from getting down to once we release that, that's gonna be the sole.
If I may, we're
Yes,
gonna
yes.
maintain that until everything stabilizes in.
Okay.
Whether it is, the pond has to take seed, grow.
Yep.
Before we can actually release that, so we're gonna keep that active, and we'll traverse over it with the equipment, kinda like a berm.
Okay.
That way, it's not sending water right down to, wipe out the seed and everything.
Because that's my concern, and I understand what you want to do, and I agree, mucking this out and getting it to work as designed is the goal. I get it, and I agree with that. I just harbor privately the concern that does it have adequate capacity? Was it designed adequately to function on that site? everybody agrees it's a challenging site. We all agree.
I mean,
So,
the pond's an overkill.
say it again?
It's an overkill. I mean, that
You
pond
think-
is designed if I pave the entire upper lot.
Yeah, listen, I hope you're right.
I mean,
Because
that's,
if you're right, we're all happy.
that's what the calcs come out to.
I get it. Okay, all right, I'll pass it on. Thank you.
Yep.
Who was the third part of review on this? Okay, well, you know how I feel about that.
Public meeting, though.
I know. I think at the minimum, because if this fails again, we're back in a,
I mean, we're also keeping the pumps there until it's done, so.
I'd like at least that to be, I think we should at least have that measured and certified it is what it is.
Have you done an as-built just to make sure that
It's not, when it's done, we will, yeah, because we have to certify the volume on it.
That-
I defer to the engineers on the ends of the table here when it comes to that. I realize that that's not my area, but I understand how the system is supposed to work. So,
It just has to have sufficient volume to be able
Yeah.
to receive the waters that it gets. And
that's the question.
it's not so much an as-built, it's like an interim as-built.
Right.
And then as long as you know what you have and you continue to maintain it and continue to muck it out,
So-
the presumption is you've got the volume.
Yeah,
But we don't know that yet.
But my understanding is that the issue is, because it's a wet pond, there's no place for the water to go. And by connecting the outlets, that will provide that extra volume. It's gonna throttle it down and let it out through
It's
those
always gonna have
orifices.
3 feet of water in it.
Well, that's why
Yeah,
we've been
design.
pumping, that's why you've been pumping through filters, right?
What's that?
You've been pumping the pond out through filters so that we could lower the level of the pond so that you could eventually muck out the bottom.
Right.
Well, I mean, the intent is because the turbidity never came out, because it's just slow settling in that, we had to we actually flocked it then with 9,000 different types. and
But
then
you're
we
always gonna
filtered it
have
out.
turbid water going in there.
Not once you're stabilized.
Once,
You shouldn't be
once the
picking up
site's
that fine.
stabilized, it should be.
That's why I
We're a
wanna
long
move
way-
into, we have the slopes, we have a
We're a
lot of
long
the
way
slopes
from that, though, right?
stabilized.
Arguably, we're a long way from stabilization.
Not really.
Getting closer every day, but still some to go.
I agree.
Still some to
The-
go.
I see it.
The time spent has been waiting for the pond to go down.
Yeah.
And just the rain events that have kind of come
I
in
know,
every
I
week,
know.
it's,
So let's anticipate.
it's
what the
reset.
next-
I just went to the Weather Channel and it looks like rain Monday, Tuesday,
Right.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
So I mean,
That's
if
what
I
it looks
can,
like.
if we can go into that pond in
That's what it looks like.
2-3 days, we could have the loom down, we could be hydroseeding the 3rd or 4th day.
All right.
Let's anticipate
I mean, you know.
what
it's-
could,
Run the pumps.
let's anticipate and avoid the next potential violation is, so you're gonna muck it out. Where is that material going? Going into truck off-site, it's going back up top site, where you bring
We'll
it all
stockpile it up top until it dries out.
and dry it out? So you're gonna load it onto the gravel road, keep that gravel road clear, nothing's going down the paved street. You don't have to worry about tight tailgates or anything. And once it's up top, you're gonna put a perimeter around it just to keep it
There
from.
already is.
All right, good.
Do you mean an extra perimeter around that actual stockpile of material that they're gonna muck out?
Well, they're gonna muck it
Not
out, it's
just
just,
the
it's just another source for, potential
Right.
runoff and it moving back down, so it needs to be brought out, dried out, desiccated, and protected to prevent it from coming back down, so whatever it is they need to do to prevent it simply from coming down, they just
So-
need to take those precautions.
So in addition to the berm that's up there? Is that what you're saying? I
You
just
had,
wanna
the
make sure.
berm is it like a mulch berm that I saw?
No, there's an earthen
Earthen
berm.
Earthen
berm
berm?
around the top.
I guess all I'm gonna say is, so long as there's sufficient volume with the material in there, that it doesn't mix and become turbid and over top again, or blow out.
So I guess the only way we find out is to allow the activities as requested, activities 2, 3, 4, and 5.
I would like to recommend that they add 7, because if they have an opportunity to loam and seed it and get it started before October 15th, so they can actually get some growth on those side slopes, I think the benefit.
I thought that was, I thought that was already part of a previous enforcement order to loam and seed all those,
Not the basin.
not the
So
basin.
7 is the basin.
Thank you, all right, thank you. Yeah, I agree with you, Anthony, I agree 100%. I would also include 7 in the list of 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Yep, forgive me, I don't have the list in front of me. but
So
The
that's
foundation on there, so we can stabilize that side.
install the outlet control structure, install drainage pipe, install the inlet pipe.
But not
that's off of Meridian's memo, and the foundation was not mentioned in that memo.
Yeah. I would think once all that's done, I wouldn't have a problem with the foundation going in.
Agreed.
That's, so, you know, I think there's a sequence, so once you get that done and we know we got a pond that's stabilized, you know, moving on to the rest of the site, I don't think becomes an issue. Especially once you get that outlet pipe in there, because then you're not gonna have that overtopping issue that you had before.
Amy, anything else you want?
Sean, you have anything to say?
So, items 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7 first,
Yeah.
right? And then
That sounds like what,
allow for foundation sign-off?
Let's get these done first.
That's what I mean.
The next meeting, we can sign off for that.
Do you think you'd be ready for the foundation within 2 weeks?
I mean, I'll be done next week with all that, as long as I can keep the water down. If I don't get a bunch, 4 rain
So
days.
2 weeks is not a huge.
we should wait 2 weeks, I think, right?
Yeah.
And then we can sign off,
Let's look at this in 2 weeks and,
then we can, next meeting,
Okay.
have you come back, and if everything's going well.
Do you-
progress is on.
do you feel moved, Tony?
I do. I move to amend the enforcement order to allow for activities 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7 to move forward now that the basin is on its way to being dewatered, and understanding that the notice of intent still pending, and have them come back in 2 weeks.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed and that unanimous. So I just have one more question. So everybody, is everybody comfortable with the detention pond?
Well, for the time being.
It is what it is.
Right now, it's the detention pond.
Okay, because if that doesn't function, this whole thing is a waste of time.
So, I think
It's
we're
not the
doing,
right size.
I think we're doing the right thing here.
Okay.
I don't think we have any other alternative right now.
No, I think, I'm all for the thing moving
As long as we
forward.
hold off on paving, it doesn't sound like you're gonna be ready to pave until next year anyways, because you're gonna wanna,
I mean, I'd like to put binder on the road and put the berm up the road, so that way it kind of
oh,
contains everything.
that's true, but the majority of the upper.
The rest stays gravel, doesn't get paved.
So, yeah, as long as you, I think you should be fine.
So I mean, my intent would be stabilize the pond and start pulling that berm up top back, and then be graveling my way back to kind of keep it, contained and stabilized. I mean, the graveling the upper laydown area was part of that list, I believe.
Could you resubmit the drainage calcs with the notice of intent, just to, so we can,
I can send you the report
yeah, that'd be great.
that
Just to,
Meridian did.
well, Joe and I can flip through it.
That's all I have.
It's,
All right, so we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, next one, I have to recuse myself,
Which one is that, Mr. Chairman?
1210 Osgood Street, 242-1692, Princeton Properties.
Okay, I think, I will be happy to act as chair for this one. I think that this is subject to a special meeting, and therefore, this gets continued. Am I right?
No, this is something different.
This is the enforcement order, so we are going to have a special meeting on October 19th for the amended order of conditions.
Okay.
But I was forced to issue an enforcement order for some problems and failures with the groundwater treatment system during the month of July.
The interceptor trench?
Yes, the interceptor trench. So, in coordination with our third-party peer review, GEI, I prepared an enforcement order requesting a series of information. We requested that the tenants be notified that there is a seat that is running across the parking lot. They did that. They actually went door to door with that notification.
Yep.
Instead of certified mail, because they know their tenants'
Yep.
mail habits better than us. So Jeff Brown with Princeton is with us this evening. He's general counsel. Basically, the main thing is ratifying the enforcement order. And I didn't know if there's any other requests for information that you guys wanted. I put a deadline for response. I think it's the 29th. But Jeff's here to give an update on their progress in responding to those requests for information. And we may need a little extra time for that.
So you're responding to the enforcement order that was issued, specifically with respect to the failure to perform of the interceptor trench as advertised?
Well, actually, yes, first of all, I'm Jeff Brown with Princeton Properties. As the commission may be aware, Princeton is no longer the owner of this property. It was sold in May, so I'm counsel for the new owner of the property, which is LIPT, Osgood Street LLC. I did receive the enforcement order. It involved an interceptor trench issue as well as the seep issue. And I was in touch with Paul Lockwood, Paul McManus, Joe Pesnola from Hancock. And we have worked through these issues, and I believe we have satisfactory answers to all of them. Amy and I have been going back and forth a bit because I think there was some question as to whether the commission could have a quorum. So I proposed that I have our response. It was supposed to be due today, and I was on vacation last week, that we have it by Friday. And I'd asked her possibly I could have till Monday or Tuesday for our response, and that would put us in good shape for a hearing in the 13th on the regular schedule. I can tell you, based on my review, that these were isolated incidences. Subsequent, well, let me take a step back. As part of your enforcement order and order of conditions, we have monitoring both by Paul McManus from Ecotech every 2 weeks on the site that monitors all the wetlands, erosion control, and everything. We also have separate monitoring by Paul Lockwood and the LRT team. Once a month, they provide the data to you on the function of the water treatment system, from gallonage, effluent, turbidity, things of that nature. So those have been coming in regularly. The two incidences that occurred actually occurred, one in July and one in early August. As I said, I believe they're isolated incidences in that the subsequent reports from Paul McManus and LRT all show that the items identified in the previous reports having to do with an overflow of the interceptor trench, some stressed vegetation, are now not showing at all on the site. It seems to be all addressed. The reason for these incidents was one, human error. We have through LRT, because they're not on the site all the time, they have an electronic monitoring system, and unbeknownst to anybody, that monitoring system had gone offline. We had a sump pump failure in the interceptor trench. At the same time, we had about 6.5 inches of rain. Not a good combination. So we had some overflow into the wetlands. Now that the electronic monitoring and Paul Lockwood and his team have been notified, the sump has obviously been repaired. The water treatment plant is functioning as it always has for the last year and a half. And there's been no further incidences at all about that. And so we believe that that is back under control. Paul does not feel that this is the improper design of the system or a lack of capacity of the system. It was just the failure of this sump pump, this sump. And so that was the primary issue. And again, the effect on the wetlands was some stressed vegetation and flow paths, it says, due to constant state of saturation. Those are no longer present in the wetlands or in the resource areas at all, according to the subsequent reports from Paul McManus and Paul Lockwood at LRT. And all this will be part of my summary report to Amy. And there are 3 items noted in the enforcement order, the August 11th. The second item is a letter from John Henry from LRT saying the wireless connection system and modems have been updated, meaning we are back online electronically as far as monitoring. The Lockwood team is there on-site once a week, and then monitors 24 hours a day electronically. So we have both distance monitoring and on-site monitoring, if you will. The last item was a seep from the corner of a building. Again, another period of heavy rain. We had almost 4 inches of rain that day, and we had a seep that was coming across the driveway to a catch basin. We have, per one of your enforcement orders, we had installed a French drain in that area. We have now done some O&M, flushed out the French drain, and we'll continue to do additional O&M on it, and believe that problem has been rectified. And again, the subsequent reports from both Pauls, Paul Lockwood and Paul McManus, aren't noting any problems with this area any longer. We have given notice to all the residents that if they see wetness in this area, to avoid it, to have their pets avoid it, and because it is untreated before it reaches the catch basin. And all this will be in my summary report to Amy, which I really would like to submit Monday or Tuesday, which should give you plenty of time to review it for the hearing on the 13th. I will also bring Paul as well. I only got this call from Amy this afternoon that we were on tonight, or I would have brought Paul Lockwood or John Henry from LRT. If you feel Paul McManus is needed for this, you have all his reports. I was just planning on bringing John Henry in case there were any, or John Henry or Paul Lockwood in case there were any engineering questions regarding the system.
Joe?
I mean, it seems like they reacted pretty swiftly to the enforcement letter. I think my underlying concern is that for all the sophistication of the systems and for all of the assurances of the continual monitoring, it seems like there was an unreasonably extended period of time that this wasn't reported on their own to us directly, as opposed to us finding out. And I think that we're fortunate that the impacts were minimal. They're fortunate the impacts are minimal. We are from a resource perspective. But I think the underlying concern of the diligence and monitoring and being aware, it's great to have 24/7 telemetry that be able to give them results, but when it suddenly stops communicating, someone's got to raise the flag and say, I got to go down and see what's going on. And it didn't seem to have happened. So the hope moving forward is that will never happen again.
I think we can address that in we have, as part of our reaction to this, increased on-site monitoring by LRT, and we can certainly add that as part of our contract with LRT to however we check this telemetry on a more regular basis to know when it goes offline.
So,
Jeff?
I'm good.
You know, people that have septic pumps in their homes have alarms that sound audibly when a pump fails. It's a simple function. It's not new science. There's nothing new about it. Your project has been under extreme scrutiny for 2 years now. You have effluent that still exceeds acceptable levels for pH, and something like this can still happen, is remarkable to me. With the scrutiny that we have put your clients through, and with the number of times that you've been in front of us with what I call the oops factor, that this could still happen is just remarkable. A pump alarm is so simple, and I'd say 1,000 houses in this town have them. And it's when your septic ejector pump fails, it makes a noise to tell you the pump has failed. Something as important as the interceptor trench, which is intercepting pH-leveled water that exceeds 12.5, ought to be considered as important as a septic ejector pump. And it ought to have an alarm system that is foolproof when it fails. When that pump stops running, when that trench fills up with water, that should be a no-brainer. It's simple technology. Every licensed electrician in this state knows how to install that pump. It's nothing tricky. And it's disappointing, sir, that after all the time and scrutiny that we've put into this project, that still is able to happen. It's just disappointing. It's hard to believe. And I appreciate you being here. I'm not trying to make this personal. It's not. But it's a tool. It's a function. And that's all. I'm gonna pass it down to.
Yeah, it's certainly something I'll raise with John Henry. I think, I'm an attorney, so I'm not gonna try to play engineer. I think what was happening was the interceptor trench was flowing to the water treatment plant, so it was functioning. What was happening was the sump was not picking up the excess water to make it function better. So it was still functioning. It didn't shut down. So whether that has anything to do with this alarm, I just don't know.
Just be clear on what Al was saying, it's not so much whether the pump is working or not, is whether the water level rises to the point of concern. And that's just simply a pipe with a float in it.
A float that sets off an alarm.
That throws off a switch that triggers an auto dialer. It's very, very easy. It's very easy.
It's honestly, it's old technology. Everybody in the town that has a force main sewer system has an ejector pump every time they flush the toilet that fires up, that pumps that stuff up to the force main, and when it doesn't work, the alarm goes off in the house, and you think, you can't believe the noise, because it's telling you you're in danger.
I'm not disagreeing. I don't think it's any secret.
And all we're talking about here is pumping water.
Yeah, I understand.
We're talking about an interceptor trench that's picking up water, effluent water that's pH poison, and it's pumping it to be treated. And it's preventing it from going untreated into the resource area, onto the parking lot, into areas where your tenants might be wandering around. The idea is to intercept it and handle it. And anyway, that's my comment on it. I'm not.
All I can say is we spent a small fortune on this. I don't know why, with all the engineers, we wouldn't have such a simple device, but I can't answer your question.
I'm gonna not comment anymore. I'm gonna pass it down to able counsel.
I don't have any other questions for you.
You know, I'd just like to echo if there's a way to incorporate an alarm, audible and visual. A lot of them have just a orange light that's outside that goes around, and with the residents there, they'll call someone, the property management, and say, hey, I see an orange light flashing.
Yeah, we do have property management that checks the water treatment operating system on a daily basis. It's not Paul Lockwood and his LR team of experts. We have gone through training, paid professionals have trained our staff, so when Paul isn't there, it's not as if it's not unattended, it's just our staff is attending to it.
Okay.
So if it's okay, I would like to submit that report, let's say on Tuesday, and then we'll be ready for the hearing on the 13th.
Sounds like a plan. Anybody else have any other questions or concerns? If not, I think we release counsel.
Do you need anyone besides Paul? Do you think we should bring Paul McManus? I mean, my personal opinion, I think it's the technology of the system and Paul Lockwood.
Some sort of formal, letter to some extent that he reevaluated the resource area.
Yeah, Paul is
He reached
willing
the
to-
conclusion that you reported.
Well, the resource area is one thing, but I'd like to see either a person or a report on how,
Paul Lockwood or John Henry should be here.
but with
they're
respect to the
agreeing.
operation of the pumps.
Yeah, they're agreeing to be here. My question was, Paul McManus monitors the
The wetlands.
wetlands, although they've recovered, and I think it's evident in his reports,
Yeah.
subsequent to these events.
We already had that report?
Yes.
You know what, can I ask a question about that with regard to the wetland? I haven't seen the report yet, but one of the things I put a lot of faith and stock in are soil samplings. The bad pH level water made it to the wetland. And we always get reports back that that's a temporary disturbance and it's gonna clean up. But we never really know what's temporary and what's long-term until we take a good sampling of soil in an auger and look at that and analyze that. That tells us, that's the litmus test that tells us what. So I'm gonna make that request now. And
the engineers left.
I want to know what's in the soil, I know what flows over the top, I get it, but something always goes down in, and a good wetland scientist knows what to look for.
Well,
And I think he's a
Paul has
good,
been
and I
submitting
think
these-
he's a good wetland
yeah,
scientist.
he's been submitting these reports for a year and a half.
Yeah, but none of them had to do with soil samples in the wetland, did they? They didn't, they're surface water.
Well, I think he took his direction from either the enforcement order or the
Okay,
order
so,
of conditions, so it
so
wasn't a part
consider
of it.
this a new request.
Okay.
Yeah, his initial direction, way back, was calcite.
Surface, yes,
Presence,
yes.
presence of calcite, and what did it do to the plant life, what did it do to the amphibians and
Now,
to
let's see if
any
it's
other?
had any impact going in.
From there evolved to doing just a general habitat study and to see if there were other detrimental effects. Not so much sampling, but population census.
So if you.
I don't know if that was done again, other than visually saying that the grass was laying down due to heavier flow. We don't know if he actually assessed.
So maybe,
It's
and maybe this might not answer the question, but let's at least have him take a shot at it.
Yeah, I mean, his report that generated the enforcement is quite thorough in his observations, if you read it.
I have no problem with his report. I'm asking him to go one step more.
I understand.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay?
So, amend the enforcement order to modify the response deadline to October 5th, and add requirement that soil samples in areas of distressed vegetation be taken to be analyzed.
I think the issue is.
Second.
Based on his reports, he's reporting all the distressed vegetation that's now become undistressed.
Yeah.
Right.
It's returned to normal, so I don't know what soil samples he would take.
It'll tell us what's in the soil.
Well, I
Soil,
think that-
soil is like a sponge.
No, I
But if
understand.
it's
I think he
recovered-
was saying take samples in the areas of distressed vegetation. There's no longer any distressed vegetation on site.
Let's find out if there's any long-term damage done to the soil.
Where would you like the soil samples done from?
Where the water has flowed,
Yeah.
To the maximum extent of.
to the maximum extent
previously
practicable.
Distressed vegetation?
Yeah.
That sound,
Yeah,
so if if it was 20 feet from the outlet was the maximum extent, sample up to that point.
That's fine.
That-
He reports every 2 weeks, so I imagine you'll get
Yeah.
one in.
Yeah.
well
I
before I'm-
generally understand what you're asking for. What I don't know is how to make that in the form of a motion. It seems to me that we've got some concern where
Yep.
this water got out, and it probably had high pH in it, and it may have had some impact. So what do we ask them to do?
we want to
One
see what the.
sample, 10 samples, 100 samples, whereabouts? What are they looking for? Are they looking to just measure pH? What do we
Yeah,
ask them to do?
Yeah, I want to see what's in the soil. I
Ju-
want to see, I want to see if
pH
this,
or-
I want to see if the soil is bearing pH levels that exceed 7.5 or 8.
Well,
So we-
wetlands are generally acidic anyways, so organic soils tend to be higher in pH. So I don't know what the baseline would be.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's my
I
only,
don't know how to make that in the motion, because I think there is no baseline.
yeah.
There is, we've
Go ahead.
I think there is too.
yeah.
I think the baseline is,
Well, we've got loads of data that they presented to us 6 months ago of the water, of the pH of the water, and it
Well-
was down.
well, the effluent hasn't changed in 2 years.
It has. It's gone down by about two pH points over the year and a half it's been running.
What is the effluent, what is the reading
It's
of the?
averaging about 10 now. It started off at about 12.5,
12.5 is where we started, yeah. So,
based on the LRT reports.
I believe the report, okay. Just make the
I
request.
just
I
want to
will
make
ask
sure
them
that
to
if we're
do,
asking them to do something, it's clear of what it is we're asking. That's what I want to-
So take 3 samples in each area where distressed vegetation was observed, and test for pH.
Yeah, and just report back compared to a typical
Yeah,
organic,
I'll ask him to use his
organic soil.
judgment as to what it would normally be as to any abnormalities.
Well, you could always take the sample that we're asking them to take, where the vegetation has been distressed. And you could always go 10 feet off to the right and take a soil sample
Yeah.
over there.
Yeah, I
Some,
think- I
someplace
think-
else in the wetland.
I think the other commissioner's point is it's not gonna be 7.0.
Yeah, no, you're probably gonna be up
You're
around
probably gonna
9.
be up because it's
How about-
naturally
how
up in
about
the
we see what
wetland.
it is?
Let's see if there's any variation in the line. You know, you might get a 7.5 here, and you might get a 12.5 there. Let's see what it is and where it is. Because it's easy to say the wetland is cleaning itself out, and it's easy to say it's recovering, but the true measure of recovery is the soil.
It's, so,
Yeah, I think I'm.
And the
Mr.
surface
Lynch's
water.
point,
And-
I'm trying to give Joe McManus some direction.
So
maybe,
that-
maybe have him come back, you're coming back the 13th, right?
Right.
And then again on the 19th?
The
So
9th
maybe-
will be for the amended order.
Well, maybe
maybe
Amy
the-
and I we should go out with Joe and show him where we want him to test.
Or maybe
We
have
can
him
do
come
that
back
too.
with the,
Have a conversation with them.
We can
have him
talk,
propose
yeah.
a sampling plan by the 13th and
That's it.
present it to us.
Okay.
That way,
We can chew on it.
yeah, and maybe, I'm sorry, I forget the wetland scientist's name. Joe?
Paul McManus.
Paul McManus. Maybe Paul has a better plan. He says that, you know, this is how we should do it. And, rely on his expertise.
Good suggestion.
It's the same way we did it when we were doing it up in the parking lot, when they had test wells, and each well had a different reading. We could read where the pH was high and where it was non-existent.
Those monitoring wells are still
Yeah, those
there.
were
They're still there.
in the groundwater.
So
that's,
that's the idea.
Understood.
Looking for variables.
Understood.
It'll tell us if we can have confidence in the plan.
I agree. I think to Mr. Lynch's point, I was just trying to describe the plan so I could describe it to
Yeah.
Mr. McManus.
I'll make myself available to go out there if there's any question.
But again,
I know he goes every 2 weeks, so I don't know what
Yeah,
his
so-
schedule is, but he's out there.
Okay.
I
So
think he
it's-
was out there
so-
the other day, yesterday.
Okay, so we're shifting that idea to Paul McManus proposing a sampling plan
A plan,
for the
yes.
soil.
That's the idea, yes,
Okay,
yes.
by the 13th.
yes.
And so all the other, the rest of the request for information by the 5th.
Correct.
And,
The response.
yeah,
Okay, so that sounds like the
It will
motion
still be
as
on
amended.
For the 19th, for the
Yes.
amended order of
Yes.
conditions.
yes, yep.
Okay, everybody good? So that's the motion as amended. All those in favor?
Who motioned?
Opposed?
Who motioned?
Joe moved it,
Joe.
moved it, I seconded.
Okay, thank you.
and it's unanimous.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you,
Thanks for
Counselor.
coming, Jeff.
You're gonna get me a draft of the,
Yes, I am.
okay.
It's yours,
That's
Mr. Chairman.
right.
You got it back. Don't squander this opportunity.
All right, 16 Ferry Street.
Thanks for coming. Okay, so the commission issued an enforcement order for non-compliance with the determination. Some areas were disturbed that weren't supposed to be. Commission required reseeding of these areas, and that has been done. So and also the remainder of the work to be accomplished through the existing fence at the front of the house. So seeding and strawing of the disturbed areas has been done. So I would recommend just keeping this in place until we get some growth. So we'll monitor that and report back on the 13th.
The only thing I would say, if things aren't progressing or don't progress, we should set a date for instituting fines based on track record. So if by the next meeting, we don't have any good information,
Well, you want to, so we have seed there.
Yeah, it's gonna take at least a few weeks
Continue it
to start to fill in.
Yeah,
I would say later October.
later October. So maybe check back in on the 27th, give it some time.
I just don't want it to go away.
No, yeah. I mean, they're not running over that anymore, they're not, passing vehicles over it, so it should start to germinate.
It's up to you guys to, if people are just walking away, because there's no bond in here involved, so we're gonna have to just do it staff-wise.
Right.
And if things aren't progressing, then we're gonna have to fine accordingly. That's the only way we're gonna get compliance. So we can talk about it,
Okay.
but,
So the fine would be if the grass doesn't germinate and fill in and stabilize? Is that the threshold?
yeah, the site, and they went into the riverfront area with material. So
But
they're,
they took that out.
No, I understand, but the next thing that the deadline is for the grass to take hold and be stable, correct? The
Yeah.
erosion controls are all in, everything's been fixed.
Yeah.
Just the grass has gotta grow.
Yeah,
yeah. We
So, I
want-
mean, the reality is you get the weather against you coming up, you're getting seed to pop when it's 42 degrees and, 50 degrees every single night and barely getting into the 60s during the day with rain. It's just, you're against the calendar. The recommendation is some other stabilization method. It may not just be established grass turf this time of year. It may be tackifier, it may be hydroseed, it may
Yeah.
be something more than what they've done.
right.
Let's see what happens on
Yeah.
the 27th.
All
Yeah.
right.
If they've already seeded, it should germinate by then, I would think.
The timing's not horrible.
Right.
Right. And it was an Ernst mix, I saw the bag. So, yeah,
Like I said, I just wanted to stay on this one.
yep. Okay,
All
so
right.
continue to the 27th.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, and that's unanimous. Next one is 60 Campbell Road.
So the commission will recall, this is an enforcement order for unauthorized removal and grading. Commission required an as-built plan and a restoration plan for the 25-foot no disturb zone to be submitted by, actually, the 22nd. And then a notice of intent for all the rest of his plans for the property for October 6th. So they're making good progress. Greg is here, he can fill you in on what's been going on since then.
Thanks, Amy. So we're going to be submitting a notice of intent tomorrow. The plan's done. We know the extent of the alteration. Wetlands have been flagged. This started out as a property owner that wasn't familiar with regulations. There was an issue with sight distance when they pulled out of their driveway onto Campbell in a tight corner. They took out some trees, they took out some fill, they moved the fill to the backyard. Wetlands on the other side of the road on Campbell, so the work out front was within the 100-foot buffer zone, and the work out back was also within jurisdictional areas, some of which was in the 25-foot no disturb. So everybody's cooperating, everybody understands what happened and what they have to do at this point. So our notice of intent will be some after-the-fact permitting for some work that was done, and then some restoration as well. And I checked in with the office before I came here tonight, and that notice of intent will be submitted tomorrow.
Jack?
No questions.
Al?
No questions.
Sean? Nothing. Tony?
No questions. I think we can extend it as long as we keep the enforcement order for restoration work in the 25-foot.
And erosion controls are in, and they did put some seed mix on some of the areas that we got permission to put seed mix on, just to try to get something growing.
Okay. All right, well, we'll see you next meeting.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next one is 268 Raleigh Tavern Lane.
Okay, I need to recuse myself.
No.
I'm on a bar.
All right, so, I don't have this, am I not seeing it? So the commission was waiting for an updated survey plan to show where the unpermitted patio was built and whether it was in the 50-foot no-build zone. So, as you can see by this plan, a corner of the patio is within the 50. My first impression was that the commission would require to have that corner removed. But the second is how would we, after the fact, permit this patio for the portion that's outside of the 50-foot no-build zone? So the deck came under a determination of applicability, and then they went ahead and did the patio after the deck was done. So I don't think the commission modifies determinations of applicability. Is that correct? Okay.
So, but I mean, you're talking about removing the corner of
The corner, but,
Wouldn't that be done under an EO?
yes.
Yeah, the remaining.
But the remaining portion of the patio never got properly permitted. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, I see what you're saying, the whole
Right.
existing?
The whole thing.
Right, exactly. So is it an after-the-fact RDA with 3 times the fee?
So my suggestion would be an EO to take the corner off,
Yep.
and then an after-effect filing at 3 times. That would be my suggestion.
Okay.
I want to see if anybody else agrees. Huh?
What is the patio? It says CR patio, it's like crushed rock, I'm not familiar with CR.
Corner patio.
Corner. Okay. So it's a hardscape patio, it's not?
Yes.
All right, all right.
Yep.
Either one.
Well, no, she just put the alternative one
So
out there.
an
I
enforcement
think
order
we just go-
requiring
just
removal
do the
of
triple
that
effect.
corner, coming back with an updated plan under an after-the-fact RDA for after-the-fact permitting.
So, an after-the-fact modification to the existing IDA? Is that a possibility?
I'm posing the question to you guys because I wasn't under the impression that you guys did modifications to determinations of applicability.
You don't,
Right.
Um,
So
Yeah, yeah.
enforcement order requiring removal of that corner, come back with a revised plan showing a compliant patio and after-the-fact RDA.
Does this fit it all under a small project?
No,
that's
too big. Too big.
You can't do it on a prior, small project on a small prior violation, right?
Right.
No, I'm talking about filing it afterwards, after enforcement order has them, get them in compliance. And after the fact, small project, but it's too big.
Yeah, it doesn't, there's not a letter that fits this.
right, and they're not in compliance because they never filed.
So what's wrong
Well,
with
they
the,
filed an RDA and didn't do the pre-construction, they just built it.
so what's wrong with an after-the-fact IDA after it's, after?
Nothing.
We don't have,
Yeah.
we don't have.
What I'm looking at is if this came into us ahead of time, and they were outside the 50, we would have let this be an RDA.
Yeah.
But
And
would you
that's
modify
what,
an RDA, which I don't think you would.
No.
you can't modify because it's not
Yeah.
recorded, the RDA is not recorded.
Right.
I think it
But
has to be.
since one was never filed,
Right, a new one,
they'd be filing a new one retroactive to
the
maintain the
patio.
existence,
yeah.
minus that corner.
Yes.
All right, so they have to file an after-the-fact modification.
No.
After-the-fact
After-the-fact
RDA,
RDA.
excuse me.
Yeah, but so do we want a deadline to remove that corner?
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that has to be done before the filing.
right.
That's
So, I mean, what-
that's a precondition.
Right, so do we want a deadline for that, like by the 13th
Well, I don't know,
or by?
I don't know how long it takes to get somebody to cut
I
that
mean,
corner
I
off.
don't either.
You know,
I don't know.
What is the patio? Is it poured concrete? Or is it
No,
brick?
it's
Is it
block,
Block?
block.
Pretty quick.
if you, if,
27th?
Yeah.
And then they can ask for a extension if there's a reason that they can't get someone out there, but.
That's reasonable.
Yeah,
I like it.
So, all right, 1027, new corner, staff. Observe. And then after the fact,
Yeah.
RDA with compliant plan.
Can they make the cutoff for the next meeting?
Not for the 13th.
No, we're giving them 4 weeks, right?
Yeah, I think they would have to file.
We're giving them 4 weeks.
Yeah, they could file the next day for the,
Yeah.
Okay.
And just for a note on the
November
application,
meeting.
where they actually filed, the plan they submitted is in support of an enforcement order, but it needs to be stamped. This one is not.
okay. And so submit after the fact RDA in time to get onto the November meeting.
Yes.
Does that make sense? Is that all right?
What's the date of the November meeting? Is there one meeting in November?
Yep.
17? All right, I will tell you now, I will not be, I'll be out of state that week.
Okay, good to know.
I already know that one right now.
Okay.
So the reducing of the deck will be cut the corner off, that's gonna be come under enforcement order?
Yeah, that's an EO to do that.
Yep.
An EO to bring it into compliance.
And we're giving them a month to do it?
To the 27th.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Do we want fines after that?
yeah,
Okay.
because this shouldn't have been built in the first place,
Right.
or follow the order conditions
Wh-
from the get-go.
Which only, yeah, the determination only governed the deck, so. If not,
Okay,
okay,
so we're all set.
yep. So
Right,
we need
next
a
one is-
motion.
Next one is 64.
We need a motion though.
So
Oh, we
moved,
do.
so
Okay.
moved, so moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, and that's unanimous.
Okay, great, thanks.
Next one is 64 Nutmeg.
Alrighty, so this property came to us as an inquiry in early May, asking about removal of vegetation and cutting some trees in the buffer. So I had responded by email just to say, we need to get out there, take a look, you know, get a handle for where the wetland is, where the proximity of work, so hold off on any work before, you know, before we get out there. A few days later, our field inspector went out. Cutting vegetation and trees had already occurred, partially in the 25 and in the 50. In consultation with the chairman, we issued a violation letter requiring demarcation of the 25 and no more activity in the 25. So with that letter, we went back out to the site to give guidance as to where the markers should go. And in discussion, the homeowners had more plans for the property. So we had asked them to provide a rundown on, you know, really what their master plan was, or what, you know, what their wish list was. So it was somewhat extensive, and we thought that, you know, really it was a notice of intent. So they dialed down their request for activity, and really what they want to do is restore lawn up to the 25 and install a fence along the 25. So at this point, the chair and staff felt that it'd be best for the homeowners to come in and talk to the commission directly in terms of, so we have these activities that were done, we have activities that are proposed. What permitting process would the commission be most comfortable with moving forward? Homeowners are here this evening if you have questions for them. So that's really it in a nutshell. So if you have any questions for me or the homeowners?
Okay. The area
Above the 25-foot don't disturb, is that presently already lawn, or was it already lawn to begin with?
I believe it was original. So, yeah, I think you're looking at one of the as-bills from
Yes.
the original development.
Yes.
I believe that to be incorrect. It says a note on our lot saying "see insert," and then it shows areas where they built a replication site and a retention pond. And they show that there was disturbed edges. They don't show any more extents of that as-built, and the as-built line itself is the same from the original subdivision plan. So I don't think that that line is actually accurate to
anything post-1995. It even shows that as-built wetland marker going through what would be the road overpass. So I don't know how you have a wetland line that's going through a hard structure. So on our property itself, there is a straight line riprap wall with some approximately 1 foot to 1.5 foot of fill behind it. So when we were measuring out to clear some vegetation on our property, we measured that as the boundary for the wetland, assuming that hard boundary with fill behind it would not be a protected wetland. And we were unfamiliar with the regulations at the time.
So this, you guys are looking at an as-built plan here, which is showing a crossing, one of the crossings, and then the wetland on Lot 5, which is 64 Nutmeg, was part of the replication. So that wetland got...
So the replication is to the west, but not to the east. The replication site is to the northwest of our property, on this side of the culvert.
So this...
That is not replication.
Yeah, well, Al will remember this. I think if you go to the inside. Actually, most of us would remember this, but this was the original Abbott Village. It spent close to 20 years in litigation in court.
20 years in court.
20 years in court. And the end result of that development was a negotiated order of conditions that this commission worked for about 2 years subsequent to the court proceeding to get in place. It had things like crossings across active flowing brooks, i.e. the thing that we're looking at, the hard structure. So the wetland line was in fact the wetland line. That's where the brook was. The structure that's there, that was exactly the purpose of the argument in court, was the access, and it challenged our bylaw. It's what made our bylaw the first in the Commonwealth stand its ground, and why other towns were able to write bylaws like ours. But the court said, we're gonna work around this. So that restoration, that area where it was encroached by a bridge or a culvert, needed to have replication on either side of it, specific to that green highlight we're seeing there. Moreover, extremely prone land to flooding. There was an awful lot of compensatory flood storage where they were typically looked site-specific, lot by lot, of what can be done. In this particular development, we had to look at the entire thing and allow areas that were being filled to be compensated elsewhere on site. So this as-built speaks nothing to your lot. This is speaking specifically of the subdivision itself. It has nothing to do with what was on your lot. It was strictly to get them in compliance with building the bridge and providing the replication and whatnot. So I think that all being said, is we can't put much reliance on this.
Agreed.
In support of what it is you're proposing.
So,
And I get it. I just wanted to establish the fact that it was a regular old wetland that got augmented with replication.
The parties here, the homeowners, to think that because of
No.
something that shows it's suggesting that something may
that's
not
set
be
in stone.
accurate.
Right.
It is to the subdivision, but maybe not to their lot.
Right, exactly, at the time.
Right.
It was at the time.
Just
So-
for my clarification, the work that was done is within 100 feet of the wetland to the west, not the detention pond to the east. Okay, that's,
Right, exactly.
yeah, all right.
Yes, yes,
No,
yes.
just making sure that,
Yes.
What the resource is.
yes, that's,
So my question was specifically, prior to any of the recent disturbance out there, was the area that, above the 25 lawn area, and now that you're asking to regrade it and reseed it, are you simply, are you asking us to put it back the way it was?
So, I sent some aerial photos in. So the property had been sold in 2005, and from 2000, whenever it was built until 2005, it was actually lawn all the way up until that rock wall, which was probably a violation in and of itself. But today, it was encroached where if you were to take an aerial shot of what it was when we bought the place in February, the overgrowth, the canopy of the tree would have gone over the edge of the house. So This property, in our opinion, was completely cleared. They put in a riprap wall with fill behind it. So we didn't think that there would be any issue with us trying to maintain our property as it was originally intended.
So,
So,
the record on this is clear, assuming we still have the records in the file. All of these permits, we could dredge up the original order of conditions, the original as-built on this lot.
Yep.
We know what was permitted.
right,
We can try to determine whether it was maintained in accordance with what was originally permitted, or was it by neglect of mowing it, they actually reverted back. But they're entitled to do whatever was on that original permit. It's easy enough to find out. If it is up to the 25 and they're asking to do it, they're only asking to put it back the way it was
Right.
in accordance with the permit, and that can be done under the EO. Sure, go ahead and do it. Put it back in accordance with your permit, which is a perpetual condition.
okay.
If he's looking to expand the lawn area beyond what was originally permitted, it's a separate process, I think.
So-
At least an RDA, if not an NOI. But it all hinges on that, what was the original permit for this lot,
Well, I think,
and what was allowed?
it was, you had a 25-foot no disturb zone. And I'm assuming that you allowed lawn up to the 25.
Not always, not on this one, because there was a lot of horse trading back and forth.
Everything about this
We
this
need to look at the
subdivision
permit for this lot.
This was all a result of a court settlement. We were operating almost on a superseding order based on the court's orders.
So we submitted a request to the town and to the Conservation Department, and Amy and Taylor were helpful to help dig up some of those documents, but there was no as-built for our lot itself. Or we couldn't find the original permit either.
If you call the number on the plan,
I called them, I called the building department,
did they not have anything?
no one had it.
All right, I mean, I only bring that up, I wasn't involved with the project, I worked there.
It was Hayes Engineering.
So I worked for them. I had nothing to do with this project. I wasn't working for them at the time this was done.
Yeah, and in fact, I reached out to them to try and help us just go through this process and help us get this done expeditiously. We have a 6-month-old dog that we want to be able to run around the backyard, put up a fence for her. As it stands, there's greenbrier all over that area. There's thorns, so we wanted to do that. And if you look at the original order of conditions, if you go to item 37, it talks about what areas that are allowed to be disturbed. You have to put loam and seed down per SCS.
Final stabilization, that's boilerplate.
My memory on this was, even though it says Hayes Engineering on it, it was Ben Jr. that was the closer on this project.
No, I don't think so. Ben's father was one of the parties.
Yeah.
And Ben Jr. was before us on many of these lots. That bridge with the stream, that was,
The individual lots.
yeah.
I'm talking the subdivision was
This
Hayes.
is a Hayes plan.
Yeah, the individual lots, there were a lot of other parties involved on
There
the
were
individual lots.
tremendous, yeah.
That's a Hayes plan, as-built
Yeah, but
plan and profile.
Yeah, but what I'm getting at is,
individual lots were sold off, that's common. We'll go through, we'll get the subdivision approved, individual lots will get sold off, and then those developers will use their own engineers.
I'm just saying, that's what I'm saying, if for purposes of finding information, he might have the missing pieces, he might. Where is he
Ranger.
practicing now? I don't know where he's practicing now. He was
Salem.
in here about a month ago.
Yeah, so you may want to try, I think they're out of the
Salem, New Hampshire now.
I mean, we're willing to concede the 25-foot off the rock wall just to get it done. We've been at it since, what, March now? We've made numerous requests to town agencies, town boards, to the engineers that had the supposed as-built, got nothing. We reached out to them and also to basically hire us to come do an assessment of the property and help get us proper documentation, and they won't take us on as a client because they're not hiring people right now, especially not small projects.
Okay, Amy, this isn't a complicated issue. If the file either exists or it doesn't.
It does. And these are the only as-bills I found
For this particular lot or for the whole subdivision?
for the whole subdivision.
We're not looking for the whole subdivision, we're looking for, was it lot 5?
Yes, lot 5.
We're looking for the NOI and the order of conditions issued to lot 5. We should be able to look up, if we don't have it in our files,
I
we
don't
can
think
look in
they
the
got
registry.
individ-
We're not
So
gonna get a
Are you saying to
plan.
me that lots got individual orders of
Yes.
conditions?
Yes, oh, God, yeah, oh, yeah.
These,
Okay, I
The
just-
subdivision,
I
the
didn't see that.
subdivision
This plan
itself,
was treated like envelopes. These were treated like
Okay.
envelopes, and then the individual lots and owners.
there were two, Campbell Forest and this one, both of which
Yeah.
ruined about 40 years of this commission's
Yeah.
life in court.
This thing,
They
this
had
thing-
to
I
look
did
at
not
the
see that in
entire
the lot, but I'll-
lot development in aggregate as pertains to building the roadway. But it required that each individual lot within the envelope of that come in and be developed in accordance with the overall subdivision and anything they wanted to do on their own.
Correct.
So every single one of these lots has its own, within jurisdiction, which is most of them, have their own separate order conditions, separate files. There's gonna be one for lot 5, and your answer is gonna be in that file. It's gonna be what was originally approved.
Okay.
And if the original approval was to allow certain amounts of landscaping and extensive landscaping,
Yeah.
if that's what they're asking, the enforcement order simply says, yes, go ahead and do it in accordance with your original permit.
Okay,
Easy, easy peasy.
okay.
but it-
If it doesn't, if it says, no, you need to, if the setback is greater because of some condition that was obvious at the time, then we may have to have them file separately, either at the very least an RDA, if not an NOI. But we don't know that yet. We don't know what the original order said.
Okay.
So what you're saying, the 50 and 25 that's on this plan right now is not accurate?
I'm not saying that yet.
it may not be.
I'm not saying that yet. I don't know.
This plan was superseded by individual filings. This was a complicated site.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sure it was.
It'd be,
I'm
you
sure
know,
it was.
we were literally between 15 and 20 years in court with this thing. You know, and,
Because this plan is dated
Okay.
2001.
yeah, that was when it got settled.
Yeah, this is the outcome. So
And
that
you're-
makes it constructed.
Yeah, if you look at the original subdivision, the exact same plot line. So, and that was from, at the latest 1995, but I think it was as early as
The original,
1986.
this was originally called Campbell Forest.
Yeah.
And,
Oh, that's a different, this was Salem Estates. Salem?
no, this was Campbell Forest.
Oh, Campbell, that was
Campbell
TJG
Forest as
out
I thought
Campbell
this was
Road.
Abbott Village.
Abbott Village.
Abbott Village, I'm sorry, Abbott Village, Abbott Village,
Campbell's
thank
the
you.
other one.
Your information is better than mine. Abbott Village. Yeah.
Okay.
And here's the other problem that you may encounter. This conservation office over the past 30 years has moved about 5 times. In each move, documents were misplaced.
I told you that story.
We had a DPW dump truck that was going down Route 125 by McDonald's with files blowing out onto the back onto 125 of active files. So that's also something that,
That's true.
it's a true story, it's embarrassing, but it's a true story, and if you really can't find files, it's very likely that's what happened.
So can I clarify, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I think we're both taking stock at this point. They've got an enforcement order that tells them to cease and desist, to identify the 25-foot no disturb zone. Doesn't look like there's any stabilization required.
No, really, it didn't get they didn't chew up soil.
Yeah,
It's just,
yeah.
so it's not like it's,
And then there's a question of stumps. What do we do with the stumps? Inside the 25, outside the 25?
We don't know what the line is, though.
So we don't know what the line is. So what do we want them to do?
I
I
mean,
guess that's kind of what I'm
my
asking.
opinion, the wetland line is on the downhill side of the stone wall, just on the downhill
So
side.
who's
I mean,
gonna determine the line?
We already have posts that have been there for several months, so we would be comfortable using the current posts. that
Some of the
have been put
current
up.
posts would need to come up,
There has
So,
to come up gradient a
wait,
bit.
so you just said that the downhill side of the wall, so you would want to have the wetland be established as on the upland side of the rock wall?
No,
So then why would we need to move our posts?
That's where the posts.
The posts are at the 25-foot mark from the
There's a-
inside of the rock wall.
there's a couple. I'm pretty sure there was a couple that needed just to be tweaked up slope, but.
No, but you, yeah, and I remember you were there. You said from the upland side of the rock wall that you thought that that was part of the natural wetland, when there's a rock wall that has soil a foot and a half elevated on the upland side of the rock wall. I can't fathom how that would be classified as protected wetland.
We have to move this.
No, well,
We've got to move this along.
Okay.
What do we want to give them for guidance? What,
downhill
We
side.
establish a wetland, yeah.
I think that might be it.
Right.
But how do we do that?
Yeah.
You have to get a wetland scientist to do it for you.
So, yeah, we've definitely reached out to a few firms and either gotten no response or been told that we're not taking on any clients.
Let's try to rein this back in.
What was that?
They got wetland scientists sitting right behind you.
Well, we've noticed that now.
Yeah,
We've been here a while.
Violation occurred, they cease and desist, it's stable.
Yeah.
They're not asking to regrade anything at this point, they're
Right.
looking to simply stabilize it, more so by planting seed, right?
Established lawn.
Established lawn.
It's all stable right
Yeah,
now.
we would want to,
I want to understand what they're asking and how we might get there. Are they asking to do anything beyond installing a fence?
You want a fence?
Yep.
So I'm gonna say, can't do the fence, but I have no problem if they wanted to seed at their own risk, that as this flushes out, at least the seeds gets established this season.
They want a loam.
we would want to flush cut the stumps or grind them down to the existing profile. We wouldn't want to
So it's
actually,
more than just seeding what's there.
so it would be more than just seeding what's there, yeah.
Okay,
There's too much
And
debris.
it's-
So we need the line.
And there's two sections, you want to also do the side yard too.
So we need to, you need to establish the wetland line. We need to know where the line is.
Okay.
Then we can decide what you can and can't do.
Would you mind me asking why there was no concern when we put the posts in? Because those have been in there for months, and the offense would be no less invasive than having all those posts that we have in the ground. So I guess I'm trying to understand.
I don't know
what the-
anything about the posts, I'll
what
be
the
honest with you.
difference is.
No, at the direction of the Conservation Commission, we put in posts with markers.
As part of
along that
the enforcement order?
Oh, yes.
Don't go any,
Yes.
that was a guidance we would often do, but, without knowing exactly where the line is, that may have been a little premature to do.
We were
If
provided
you were
that,
simply cease and desisting and going away and walking away and doing nothing more, it was harmless with the post.
So I think staff was going by this plan.
Yeah.
So it's not their fault. I mean,
no, they
if-
didn't obtain that plan until after providing
Yeah,
guidance on where to put the posts.
Right, so our opinion of where the wetland was,
Based on your experience, I mean,
Yeah.
I think you know what a wetland versus,
but I mean,
But I think we're past that.
there's disagreement here,
I know.
so it does
So, I
need
mean,
to
So
be.
we're past that now. They're saying what they want to do is
Right.
grind stumps down
Yep.
and loam and seed.
Right.
In order for us to authorize that in any way, shape, or form, we have to know where the line is exactly. You have to get a scientist to delineate.
that's why I recommend an NOI, because there's too many conditions.
So that's, honestly, we can't go past that without it. That's the starting point for us. We can have no basis if we don't know where that is.
And then, do we have a guarantee that if we get the wetland scientist, that you will follow
There
wherever?
are no guarantees, no promises, inducements, or rewards. You tell us where the line is, you show us where the line is, you come before us with the request of activities that you want, and we decide whether it's an RDA or a notice of intent, and then we hold hearings on it. That's where you are.
Sure.
My apologies, but that's where you are.
And based on the narratives that they've asked for, they're gonna need an NOI,
So-
because it's gonna be more than 3 conditions.
So, but they've got to get, you've got to hire someone, you've got to get the line, and you got to come back with your request.
I'm sorry, you
Before
said
all of
more
that-
than 3
Before all of
conditions?
that, by whatever means, through the office or through the registry of deeds, get the order of conditions and get the plan that was approved for your lot
If
when
they
it was
can,
built.
if they can.
The registry, you can get the order of conditions for sure.
I'll take a look through the records at the office.
And if I find anything, I'll send it to Amy,
Okay.
and then, we can supplement our files if we don't have them that way, so you get them through Amy, not through.
But you got to believe me when I'm telling you, you need to get the delineation done.
Yeah, we've tried and been stonewalled, but I'm gonna turn around and
Yeah, just-
ask this gentleman behind me.
We're not.
Yeah, ask the guy behind you.
We're not, we don't recommend, we just,
No,
It's a crime of availability right now.
All right, so
So you're gonna need some time to do your homework. So I would.
so the cease, desist stands.
It does, it does. A cease and desist, my opinion would be it stands. If there's anybody that disagrees, this is the time to.
Do we want stabilization at this
I
point?
don't think it's unstable.
I think
not
it's stable.
stable.
I think it's stable. I think we just cease and desist and start the process.
I'll go so far as to say if they wish to simply put seed down on the loom that's there, just to get it, that we allow them to seed it only. If they choose not to, that's fine too.
Without adding material.
Without adding material,
Without
just
grinding
seed on top of
stumps.
what's there.
But if you wanna just seed what's there, if you wanna throw seed out there, no one will stop you from doing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's the one exception, okay?
All right.
Please?
Like I said, I think I think from looking at the pictures, I think you'd be better off just leaving it filing.
But
Because you're not gonna get grass to grow soon anyways. I hate
No,
to see- I hate
it's
to
past
see
the
you spend
season, we're not
money.
growing anything at this point, but,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, it'll be to your benefit to get the line delineated, no
Yeah.
matter what course of action you take.
Okay.
You could go home and talk about it over the next couple of days and change your mind 2 or 3 times, but knowing where the line is gonna, going forward, that'll be important to you.
Looking at that picture, I mean, it's relatively stable. I mean, there's a lot of
It is
brush
stable.
there.
It's stable.
It's
Okay,
stable. So I hate to see you spend money.
Right, so let's move on here,
It might
guys.
not look pretty, but
So cease and desist holds, and what do we wanna hear back, and do we wanna hear back at any particular time, or when they're ready?
Well, yeah, it depends on how they can secure a wetland
So,
person.
so cease and desist and come back when you're ready to file? When you're ready to file?
Right.
Okay?
well, we need to get a wetland scientist, we need to get delineated.
You're gonna be filing either an RDA or a notice, depending on the activity you wanna do, and your scientist can tell you that.
Okay,
That's part of what they do.
thank you.
it's gonna be an
Thanks for
NOI.
coming in.
Hey, we're trying to get you work.
No, we're not.
No, we're not. I'm only kidding.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
All
you.
right, next one is 487 Winter Street.
All right, so the commission will recall that this is an enforcement order issued in February of 2018 for removal of trees and vegetation within a 100-foot buffer zone, and it stemmed from work off the Hollow Tree Lane. You guys will recall that debacle out there. So this was the Haydad property. So the previous owner had installed all of the plantings required and the trees. The new owner reached out to me with the, completely understood what the enforcement order required. And that was in June of 2020. There was 2 dead oaks. In August of 2020, he replanted those dead oaks with 3 new ones. And we have been out there in September to review, you know, what's out there. Everything's healthy, looking really good, well vegetated. So we recommend lifting the enforcement order for this lot. And just as an aside, there is a 32-inch diameter dead ash tree infested with EAB located about 27 feet from the BBW. They are requesting removal of that dead ash tree. And I just wanted to let you know that because this area was so sensitive. And we would recommend its removal. So we would do a tree removal letter for that. And the homeowner's here. If you have any questions for him.
Just so clear, 'cause,
This was Haddad.
Haddad, you
Yeah,
bought
I
the...
purchased from Haddad, yep.
Okay, all right, I know the place, yep,
And
I know it exactly.
She was here
That
a
was
few
like,
months before
that
we
was like
purchased.
ground zero.
Yes,
Yeah, her husband passed away.
Yeah,
that's correct.
Gentleman passed away, right, and this whole thing had, that tree cutter from New Hampshire?
She didn't even allow him on the property. He came on
Yeah,
without
no,
her permission.
he trespassed on.
Yeah, he was gonna clear the town.
He did a lot of,
He tried.
Tried.
But we clear the town with him.
he got,
Yeah.
it's got nothing to do, he got away with a lot before we finally stopped him, he really did. But anyway, let's go.
All right,
What are we doing?
we're lifting the enforcement order.
Okay.
So looking for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. You're all set.
Thanks for coming in.
Hey, there's no extra charge for all the entertainment.
Staying with us all the whole
I
time.
learned a lot.
I'm sure you did.
I saw you laughing back there.
Even with the mask.
We still do too.
Okay, so
What-
the
what-
other stuff.
What now?
The other stuff.
We got.
Oh, man.
Circle back,
Oh,
circle
man.
back.
I've got good news.
Go ahead.
Okay.
All right, let's hear it.
Propane toxicity, contamination spills. Propane is non-toxic, non-caustic, and will not create an environmental hazard if released as a liquid or vapor into water or soil. If spilled in large quantity, the only environmental damage that may occur is freezing any organisms or plant life in the immediate area. There are no long-term effects following a propane spill, even if the quantities are excessively large. The only damage and potential danger exists if the vapor is ignited following a spill. And even then, there are no long-term effects of ignited propane that can be damaging to the environment. Propane, liquid, and vapor are environmentally sound and friendly in their unused states. And the only other thing here is propane is not damaging to freshwater or saltwater ecosystems, underwater plant, or marine life. So it's a little different than gas or oil.
Yeah, so the stockpiles are going to be there just for a very short period of time.
Right, and the gas, it would be the gas company's responsibility, if there was a spill or anything damaging to the environment, to report that as the gas company.
All right, so you need a motion, you need a waiver to get the tanks out.
Well, we need a waiver to get the tanks out and hopefully a vote to get an order of conditions to do the work.
But first, before anything, you need a waiver to remove the tanks.
That's right.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Now, Greg, you said they're gonna use the fill over after they dig the tank out?
Yeah, whatever they pull out of the hole, they're gonna put back in, but they're gonna need additional
More,
material
yeah.
too.
Yeah, they got, take up the volume of the tank. Okay.
Yep.
So we can approve it then, right? Or not approve it?
We could close it, right?
Close it, and I got a draft
Yeah.
decision.
I move that we close an issue in 21 days.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous.
Thank you very much.
You're all set.
Good job.
We'll report back to Amy daily on
Yeah.
when units are
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
The next three,
That's a good job in getting homework done at halftime, right?
the next three are general business and based on the time, I think we should continue to the next meeting. It's just watershed update. Hunting dates, you were not supposed to
Hunting
put.
date is just FYI.
Hunting season's
That's-
already
it is what
open,
it is.
just so everybody knows.
I know.
Archery is already open in town, and archers should have been coming to you already to
Not
get their...
yet.
Well, the season's open, so...
I know, they usually do. We haven't seen anybody come in yet.
So on our properties like Half Mile Hill and places, if they're up there hunting without their permits, they're subject to removal.
Okay, gotcha.
In other words, they need, because we only allow 2 hunters per day per property. So if there's 5 or 6 guys up there, they're subject to removal.
Okay.
And there's-
Yes.
Yeah, please do.
So Charlie, gonna get some Kevlar suit, you go up there and fish them out.
You know, it's just real important, because that was a big part of the deal when we had the open space hearings on hunting.
Yeah.
The biggest concern that the butters had was concentration of hunters.
Right.
Which is why we restricted it at 2 per
Sure.
property.
Yep, gotcha.
Out of respect to the abutters.
I can tell you, point taken and will patrol, but I can tell you that when they do their surveys, we have them fill out,
Yeah, what have we seen?
they basically say, too many people, too many dogs.
And,
We're not gonna get any
and that,
harvest here.
that's a common thing. Currently, Greenbelt, which used to allow hunting on the Farnsworth property, has had no applicants for the exact same reason. Too many people, too many dogs, can't hunt. So it is what it is.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But
All right.
Strategically, they can actually drive them into you.
if, I don't want to, I'm
Oh,
not
yeah,
gonna,
right.
I'm not gonna run a clinic on.
No, I get it,
I'm
I
not
get
running
it.
a free clinic here on how to get the deal done,
I get
but.
it, okay.
If you got camouflage, you're already there, you know?
Okay.
Can we adjourn, or do you need us to stay open?
We need decisions, there's 2 decisions, and then signature pages.
Let's-
So Osgood Pond
Let's decide
Dam,
quickly here.
Osgood Pond Dam, I have a draft ready for
Osgood Pond
you.
Dam, okay, got it.
And then Royal Crest.
I have,
No.
Way, we send them back.
We didn't close, I thought we would have.
what about 325 Johnson, we closing that?
No, they're gonna go fishing.
So we just have 2. What a pleasure.
Speaking of Johnson Street, septic system, by the end of the road coming towards 114 on the left, that was done and open for like 3 months, and then they re-excavated.
Oh, 1010.
Is that 1010?
Johnson. So the first contractor brought in,
Oh,
not
non-compliant septic sand?
good. Right,
All right.
exactly. And then, so they had to search for a new contractor, and now they're back on track.
Non-compliant sand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There is such a thing as non-compliant sand?
yeah, it's
Oh, yeah,
gotta,
there is.
it's gotta meet the 7
Oh, yeah,
analysis and,
yeah,
Yes,
citizen
analysis.
analysis and everything.
Does it have to come from Salisbury Beach, or can you?
No,
no, it usually comes from New Hampshire someplace.
yeah, there's no sand around here.
Yeah.
Massachusetts?
Killy Ray made a lifetime out of selling sand.
Yeah.
All right.
50 years worth of selling sand.
Silty sand?
Okay.
That hill was everything.
Osgood
Clay
Pond
Pit Hill,
Dam,
baby.
come on,
That was everything.
Focus,
chitter chatter, let's go.
All right, why is it amended in
Amy,
green?
I wanna see you speed read.
We were in Osgood? Yeah, that was that?
Osgood Pond
Okay.
Dam.
So we have the one condition of the abutter, and that's 51.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
all we require is them issue a status report, period, that's it, that's fine.
Yep.
Sean, did 51 read to you like, doesn't mean they have to reach agreement, just simply that they have to make the report, and that's the end of it, right?
We're not in the business
Yeah.
Making
of
people
resolving.
be friends.
That 51's there for just for one reason.
Yep.
Puts them both in the same room. Almost like a divorce attorney. huh? I'm satisfied.
Nothing wrong?
Yeah, bond of 10 grand,
Just tree cutting and.
tree cutting, removal of shrubs.
No stuff,
They're not stumping. They're not stumping.
They're not stumping the
Phase
trees,
one-
but they're
phase one
taking
is
the
not
stumps of the.
Zero,
of the
phase zero.
shrubs out.
Phase 0, -1.
Okay, any questions?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that's unanimous. Next one
Royal
is
Crest.
Royal Crest.
Is this the one we just resolved?
Yes. I think it wants to white.
5 grand,
I think it should be 5.
5.
5,000.
You didn't put the bollards and all that stuff on there, did you?
I did,
Plumbing inspection?
I did.
They don't.
No? I just said if required by the town plumbing inspector,
Yeah, they should be
protective
in there.
bollards or equivalent may be installed.
If he requires them at some point, they have permission to do it. If they suddenly reach an agreement they don't need them,
Yeah.
it's moot. So let's let them put them in.
Then what is that coming out for conditions?
So,
So the only thing,
Why is it, Joe, why is that coming out?
Because it's a physical improvement on
they
the
said they
above-ground
would-
tanks.
They wouldn't undertake more than
oh,
2
shit.
excavations at any time.
Yeah, 2 a day.
So I
That's
just,
right.
I just figured we hold them to their
Okay,
their word and just add that condition.
all right, yes.
No more than 2 open.
And then alerting us as to which
Which,
ones-
yes. Yeah,
Okay.
so those I
They're
think are,
supposed to complete 2 a day.
right.
Not
Yes.
just-
No more than 2 a day.
Well, I'm
Or-
fine as not, as long as there's not more than 2 open at any
That's what I
given
meant,
time.
yeah.
So, I mean, if they can do 4 a day, by all means, but
Yeah.
only 2 open at a time.
2,
And nothing is, nothing should be open overnight.
Yeah.
okay.
And then provide
Wouldn't want any of that.
schedule and
My
updates.
kids fall down
Schedule.
in the hole.
That could be a lawsuit.
Will that be, what is it, Megan's one? What's the, you can't have an open trench that's not
No, I
secured
know,
without, yeah.
It's on private property, can you have it on private property?
Yeah, Megan's law covers, you have to get a trench permit everywhere in Mass now.
Really?
Yeah,
Megan's law.
yeah, Megan's law, every year. Through the engineering department typically.
Geez, I was talking to town at town hall this week. Because they were all depressed about me not doing snow.
You warned them.
I think we're still on television.
Yeah.
Not lying.
So,
Just to know if you remembered.
so we had the $5,000 bond,
$5,000 bond,
no more than 2
No
open
more than 2,
excavations,
yep.
and coordinate schedule.
Yes.
I would
And
move that
yes.
we accept the order as amended.
As amended.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous.
all right, 6 pages.
We can adjourn now, right?
We can.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that's unanimous.